Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades.
Hey, what is happening, everybody? It is Gas Masks and Hand Grenades. I'm your host, Jeff. We're a little late here. My fault. No problem here. We're ripping and tearing. I'd like to introduce my guest today. I've been stoked for this one. I've been super excited to have this one. It's cool to get this one in here before I head off on my trip. I have Mr. Terry. Yeah, I'm going to have to say your last name. I forgot to ask you. Is it Gorle or Gorle, or how is it?
It's Gorle. The E is silent.
It's Gorle, so it is a silent. Okay. I was thinking I'm going to get on there and call him Terry Gorle, and he's going to go, nah, dude, nope, that's not it.
That happens a lot.
I'm sure. So Terry Gorle, and Terry is from a band called, he is the original member, the founding member of a band called Heir Apparent out of the Great Northwest, the Seattle area. And I have to come clean right off the bat here. And I did tell you this in an email, Terry. I've known about your band for probably 35 years. I only just checked your band out about 6 months ago. I know, hang my head in shame. I understand. I get it. I've known about, as a young man, as I'm a little younger than you, I'll be 59 in March. As a young man, my favorite bands early on, I started with Kiss, of course, in the 70s. And then it graduated to Rush, Crimson, Yes, the 70s bands. And then it was Priest and Maiden. And then it was the heavier bands. And then we get into the Queensryches and the Fates Warnings and the Dream Theaters. All bands that you have a lot of common, not only commonalities in where you came up from, like bands like Fifth Angel, obviously. And I was Twisted Tower Dire from up your way, too?
I don't think so.
Okay, I was thinking they might have been, but obviously Queensryche's the big monster there, right? And I just never ever checked you guys out, even though I knew about Fifth Angel early on. Of course, Queensryche when the EP came out and the Warning came out, that was like probably my favorite album of all time at that point in time. So my apologies, mea culpa, sir. I blew it. And it came down to my friend Kellen, who I met in the metal community here. He's like, Jeff, why have you not checked out Heir Apparent yet? I'm like, dude, I've been meaning to. He's like, I've been telling you about that for like 6 months. You got to get on it. You're going to love this band. I picked up this and I threw it in. I'm like, man, what an idiot. Where the hell have I been? Like, what is going on with me here? So I'm a diehard now. I've been in love with them, everything. And as we talked, I've gone kind of crazy. We'll show everything here as we go along. I've gone kind of nuts. And I've spent a lot of money on your band. And as you said, funnily enough, you've spent a lot of money on your band. So let's start there. Let's start with how this all got started back in 1983 or 82. I guess it was 83, right?
Yeah, 83. I rented a house and soundproofed the basement, much to the chagrin of the owner, and just started looking for players and writing songs. Iron Maiden had come out with Number of the Beast, and all of us, like a lot of the bands you mentioned, we all have the same kind of influences.
Sure.
Right. So it was before. Well, Queensryche was just starting to kind of make a little bit of noise.
Right.
I had met Kim Harris at Easy Street Records, who was their manager, and he had I played him some demo tapes, and he wanted us to go ahead and be his second project. So I started writing songs in the basement myself and recruiting people in late '83, and I think we wrote 4 or 5 songs we called ourselves Sapien at the time.
And you're how old here, Terry? How old are you roughly? Early 20s?
I'm 65.
No, at the time you're 20.
At
Yeah.
the time I was, well, I would have been 24.
Okay. So you're young. You're a young dude.
Yeah, just trying to find my way, right? We all played in cover bands for a few years, learning how to play. I'm self-taught, so it's just a matter of
Sure.
listening to a Judas Priest record and trying to figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
So a bunch of us all kind of came up together in the sense that we were all learning how to play, and we all had similar influences. Maiden and Rush and Judas Priest and Black Sabbath, with Dio especially. It was like the hottest thing around. And then,
Sure.
as we got good enough to think, hey, it's we should maybe start writing our own stuff, right? So that was the goal, really. It was just see if I could actually do something and write my own material. So I started looking for people and went through a few lineup changes. Invested, all the money I had. I was a sound man at the time for bands. That was the only time I had, right? So I got to spend a lot of time seeing what worked and what didn't work in terms of shows and things like that. And had a PA system, and I'd make a couple $100 a week, running sound for bands in my van. And
that's not bad for back then, for the 80s. That's actually
just
survivor money.
Yeah, surviving, right? And those are the days. You rent a house, you put 4 or 5 guys in the house, you rehearse in the basement every day, and just try to build things, right?
Right.
And so that was what was happening through 83 and 84. And I don't know how deep you want me to get into individual band members and all that kind of stuff, but
well, I mean, let me back up just a sec before we dig in. I kind of jumped ahead a little bit. When did you start playing guitar? I mean, now you're talking, so in 84, 83, 84, you're about 24. I'm in high school. I'm probably like 11th grade at this point in time. So I'm not quite, I'm about 5 years behind you roughly. And, of course I remember the pivotal moments were Unleashed in the East in 79. That was like the first Priest I heard. And I'm like, holy hell, hearing Rob Halford, you're like, and then of course 1980 is Heaven and Hell, and Rainbow before that with Long Live Rock and Roll in 78. So those are all the formative stuff. And of course Rush was what Rush will always be my favorite band. There will never be a band better than Rush for me. Sorry, it's just the way it is. Just is the way it is. It will always be that way. And my first introduction to Rush was the Hemispheres album. And I saw it on a guy's shirt at high school. He was a year older than me. He was a stoner. I thought, this guy's cool, man. I want to be just like this guy. Probably not in the end, but you know what I'm saying? Like, he's the cool guy in the middle school. Saw that shirt, saw the album, saw the band name, didn't know a thing about him. But as soon as I put that album on, Hemispheres has been my favorite album, hands down, forever.
Yeah, I started with All the World's a Stage.
So you were like 76. You were a couple years ahead of me, yeah.
Yeah, just, working man and stuff like that. And, at one point, we played, there's a 3-piece, me and my girlfriend who played bass at the time, and a drummer, actually, the Jim Kovac, the drummer that was on the demos.
On the demos, right.
In 84. We played Cygnus X1 and 2112 back in the early 80s, 81, 80, 81, things like that.
Who sang that? Your girlfriend?
We didn't have any. We
didn't have a singer. Okay.
We didn't have a singer. It was all instrumental. But we actually did some gigs, and would just play instrumental. The only thing I could sing at the time was Hendrix and stuff like that.
More bluesy stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So.
When did you start playing then? How old were you when you got into it? Was like, what are your first kind of memories of music for you? Was it the Beatles and the Stones and stuff like that, or
pretty much Led Zeppelin?
Yeah.
I bought my first little $50 guitar from Jafco when I was 14, and got a little Sear Silvertone amp from Guitar Center in Seattle, the first Guitar Center. In Seattle at 7th and Virginia.
Wow.
And started listening to albums and trying to figure out stuff, just in my own little world, right? Driving my folks crazy, trying to figure stuff out. Could never afford lessons. So, and, I mean, my folks didn't really give a damn about me doing it at the time. So there was no support. It was like, hey man, we want you to be a baseball player. So, so when I started taking an interest in guitar, it was like, that was what I did. I played baseball and I played my guitar. And that was how I went through school from the age of 14 on up. And then after high school, I spent a year in college and I took music classes.
Mm-hmm.
And then, my folks moved to build a log cabin in Eastern Washington. And it was like, I was 19 and they said, hey, you can come with us and, go live in the woods, or you can stay here and fend for yourself in Seattle.
Yeah.
So I stayed there and fended for myself. And, girlfriend's keeping me alive, buying me a hamburger every 2 days. Yeah. And, that was the life, right?
Yeah.
Living. I spent some time, living in a van.
No shit. Down by a river? Not down by a river.
Down by the river. Down underneath the West Seattle Bridge.
No shit.
By a rehearsal studio that I could go in and run sound for bands and make a little bit of money to survive. Yeah, I mean,
I gotta ask. You threw it out there. Was it the rehearsal studio that the Alice in Chains guys were at?
This was a place called Friendship Rehearsal Studios.
Okay, because I was wondering, because I know they talk about that, like Jerry Cantrell talks about that one on the rehearsal place under the bridge. I'm thinking, shit, was he? Yeah.
Well, there was a place. Friendship Studios was underneath the West Seattle Bridge, and then there was another place I think Alice in Chains were at, which we were also at in '86. The Music Bank was.
That was it. That's the one.
The Ballard Bridge.
Yeah, that's the one.
And we got back from our European tour in '86, and Derek left to go join Savage Grace down in LA and tour with Motorhead, and we got another bass player, Dwayne, who's with me now in the latest band that'll be playing next year. And we played the Paramount in Seattle on New Year's Eve. Well, we were rehearsing at the Music Bank for about 6 weeks. And the day before the show, I mean, basically 2 a.m. on New Year's Eve, somebody broke into our rehearsal room and stole my guitars, stole our keyboard players' keyboards.
Oh.
So we ended up playing that show with borrowed gear. I borrowed a couple of guitars and had American Music, which was a local music store. They helped out and gave the keyboard player his, some equipment. And
wow, no shit.
And basically, yeah. So here we are, playing the biggest show of our lives in Seattle at the Paramount on borrowed gear at the last minute.
And all that stuff was taken from the Music Bank where you were rehearsing.
Yeah, somebody broke through the wall and stole everything.
Probably Jerry Cantrell. I'm thinking it was Jerry. I'm kidding, Jerry. I'm just kidding. Well, so you picked up. How old were you when you picked up the guitar?
14.
14. Okay, and you're basically self-teaching yourself, which most of us dudes do. I mean, I'm mostly self-taught. I did a little bit of the Mel Bay primer with some stoner dude that taught me chords and things like that, probably when I was like, I don't know, in 9th grade, 8th grade, something like that. I mean, that's just how you learn it. And generally speaking, it tends to usually work best that way, especially for rock or metal or hard rock. But so you then get out of school and were you playing in cover bands while you were in high school at all, or was that right after high school?
There was one band in high school. We played, we were horrible. We slashed our way through some Zeppelin and Alice Cooper and things like that. It was short-lived, just a few months. It was a lot of fun at the time. We pretended, but we didn't really know how to play.
Sure.
And so it was probably 80 and 81. Those couple of years were where I could really concentrate on it. Is where I started putting things together in terms of figuring out, how to play and how to get things done. And because I'm self-taught, I kind of have some unorthodox habits, right? I've got some things that are very unique to the way I play just because I taught myself, right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of incorporate that, playing on the edge of chaos and just kind of trying to control the flail and just doing something different, right? You can tell on the early Heir Apparent stuff, we were trying to do things that challenged ourselves, right? All playing over our heads, basically. And we constantly kind of worked on stretching the boundaries of what we were capable of, because we figured that was going to be the fastest way to learn, was by experimenting and just, trying to be different. And at the same time, there's boundaries, right? You have to stay inside of a certain framework.
Sure.
But we tried to be unique in the sense that Derek played a lot of, because there was only one guitar in the band, he played a lot of chords on the bass. He would do a lot of melodic stuff and a lot of, we arranged songs so that there's, emphasis where, here's a drum riff and here's a bass riff and here's a guitar riff, and worked on a lot of syncopations and things to try to keep it big and full, without being, without getting a second guitar player and being kind of cliche like everybody else. We wanted to see what we could do with just three people and a singer. So
how did the original incarnation? So the original incarnation kind of was you and Kovac, and then you brought in Derek, right?
Yeah.
Or you found Derek, and then Paul. So how do you find Paul? Like, how does he come into the mix here?
I had met Paul back in 1980 when I was running sound. He was a singer. He was a singer for a band that I ran sound for at a high school gig, junior high gig, I think it was. And same thing. I had met Derek back in 1980 as well. So Derek and Jim and I were together in bands from like 79, 80, off and on all the way through. And then Derek and I lost contact for a couple of years, and then he came back into the picture in 83. And Jim Kovac was a music major at the University of Washington, percussionist. So he was like, well, he's a phenomenal drummer. So he was like the foundation that kind of, because of his knowledge and expertise and what he did, it kind of inspired me to really, kind of get my act together and
push yourself.
Yeah, challenge me.
Yeah.
And then when Derek came into the band, before Derek, or before Paul Davidson was our singer, Corey Rivers was the vocal, right? And
he was for the Nemesis demos, right? When you did the Nemesis stuff, right? Yeah.
And he was also a guitar player, and a really good guitar player and a vocalist. And so that was another challenge thing. That was a really good period of growth for me, because I was really inspired to try to impress him, really, because he was a good guitar player and a good vocalist, and the whole thing was, I've got to really stay on top of things,
up my game,
keep these guys together and get something built, right?
Right.
Because there's no money in it, right? Everybody's, we're renting a house, we're buying gear, scraping things together, and just.
Are you gigging at this point yet with Nemesis? Are you gigging yet?
No gigs at all. Just writing and recording and trying to.
Track?
Yeah, 4-track reel to reels. Yeah.
Oh, reel to reel.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay. Wow.
4-track reel to reel in the basement with 8 or 10 microphones.
Wow.
In a mixing board, all the stuff I had basically for running sound for bands.
All the old school shit that no kids have any idea what you're talking about now.
Yeah. 1/4-inch tape.
Yeah.
On a 15-inch reel.
Yeah.
So that was it back then, and it was work and try to refine the craft and get to know the gear and get to know, figure out how to play, figure out how to engineer, figure out all this stuff at the same time, and try to make things happen. And this is the result of those tapes is what got interest from Kim Harris.
Okay, so the Nemesis demos were kind of the impetus for that.
Yeah. Okay. And so, Kim had said, the month of July in '84, we're going to have you guys go to the studio. I'm going to invest 20 grand. We're going to cut an album, right? So we're all geared up for that, and Queensryche starts taking off and getting really busy, and
Right.
And that was a huge thing too in the Seattle area. Having a band like that come up and instantly be world class. I mean, we were all just, we had a lot of pride in Seattle, knowing those guys and
Sure.
having them get successful and everything. And the idea that Kim had an interest in us was pretty thrilling too. It's like, hey man, we've got a definite goal here. And turns out they got so busy that he had to basically say, hey guys, I'm just not going to have time.
Oh.
So 2 weeks before we're supposed to go in the studio to record the album in '84, he essentially drops out.
Now,
And
just a quick question, Terry. Did he come down and watch you guys rehearse?
Yeah, him and Diane, they came to the house and we jammed through everything and they were all excited. This whole process probably took over a period of about 6 months.
Okay.
So a couple of weeks before we go into the studio, Kim drops out. So there's no budget or anything. So I borrowed $3,000 from my parents, and we went into the studio in July and pared it down to 5 songs, what we could record for $3 grand. So we went in and did the 5-song demo in '84, and then made cassettes of that and started sending those out.
And that's Inception Day, right? That's the demo, right?
Yeah, that's what ended up calling that.
Yeah, these are really nice. These are the I don't know who put these out.
The Foundations thing was I think it was a guy in Greece originally.
Yeah, Vic Records, VIC.
That was the reissue.
These are the reissues.
The original version of Foundations that was put out on vinyl.
Vinyl only. That's right.
There was green and black vinyl, and then a couple years later, they wanted to do a CD version with a different label, and so we kind of repackaged the whole thing.
These are really nice, man. I picked these both up. They have the Foundations one has the Nemesis demos from '83, which includes, I'm looking here off the top of my head, 5 songs that end up on Graceful.
Yeah, we changed the titles and the lyrics on a couple of them.
Okay.
I think a song called "Tame the Beast" ended up being "And Dogro Lived On."
Okay.
And Masters of Illusion turned into Masters of Invasion.
Yeah.
Just basically changed some lyrics and stuff. Corey was writing lyrics back then and doing the singing and stuff. And I thought, well, after he left the band, I'll go ahead and try to write my own words to some things. And we tried to be a little extra clever with Androgro Lived On.
What does that mean? I got to ask, what the hell does that mean?
Read it backwards. No devil or God DNA.
Oh, shit.
So it's,
wow.
Philosophically, we're not religious. We're like, I personally think that, it's one of the reasons that everything is so messed up is because people are so delusional, right? Especially in the age of science, everybody.
We have all these crazy Bible thumpers that think that God is. Yeah. You know what? That's crazy. I can't believe that you put together that anagram like that. That's nuts, because now I'm seeing it. I'm going, because when I'm reading that title, I'm like, this is the weirdest song title I think I've ever heard in my life. It doesn't make any, I thought it had to do with like a video game from the 80s. I'm like, I was there. I don't remember any Dogro person. So,
well, in those days there was the PMRC. There was all this satanic rock and roll stuff. All the Bible thumpers were anti-metal.
Satanic Panic, the soul satanic.
All backmasking, listen to the Stairway to Heaven backwards, and all that stuff. So all of this political horse shit was happening, and so that was kind of that was kind of a play on that, right?
Love it.
You know, Iron Maiden did the little backward voice thing at the beginning of one of their songs on Number of the Beast, right?
Right.
And so it was kind of, you know, it was kind of us just kind of making a joke of the whole thing. And then, you know, if you listen to the lyrics themselves, they're kind of, you know, they're about science, right? They're about letting go of you know, this good and evil garbage
thing. Yeah. This duality of existence that you had to have come from some maker of some sort. Was Paul was on the Inception Day stuff, right?
That was
Or was that Corey?
Yeah.
No, that was Paul.
Corey was Nemesis, and then
Nemesis.
When Paul joined the band, we changed the name to Heir Apparent, and that was the '84 recording of those 5 songs. That was supposed to originally be the first album, right?
Okay.
So we had the material for Graceful Inheritance written for the most part, but we lost the budget to record.
You had the money to do all the tracks.
So we just had to do a really quick thing. That whole '84 demo was recorded and mixed in 4 days.
Where'd you record that at?
At Triad with Tom Hall, the same
Triad
guy we used on all the albums.
Yeah, he's the guy that's been with you the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, why did you change the name from Nemesis to Heir Apparent? Was there a bunch of bands that were Nemesis already?
No, I think it seemed like it was kind of a popular name. I just kind of assumed that it was going to be in use by, you know, there's probably 50 of them around the country, and you know, let alone Europe and things like that. So I just tried to think about, you know, we were playing with different band names forever. It's like one of the things we used to do, sitting around the couch thinking, hey, what are we going to call ourselves?
Right.
So you get a piece of paper out there and you're just scribbling things down.
Yep.
And I came across that, you know, and I thought, well, what the hell? I mean, it's kind of, you know, the philosophy of the band is essentially, you know, mankind, science, we control our destiny, you know, it's all that kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Heir Apparent kind of fit with the theme of the philosophy of the band, because we could kind of say, hey, you know, it allowed us to have a name that we could tie to a philosophy. And we used to have an intro to our shows where there'd be this deep, dark voice over thing that talked about, you know, mankind moving forward, and I can't remember it off the top of my head right now, but we had this, you know, mystical, deep, dark thing that would happen. It would be a voiceover. It was basically about, hey, you know, mankind needs to get their shit together.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so that was the fundamental underlying philosophy of the whole thing. And so, and you know, Heir Apparent's already in the dictionary, so just like the Beatles. I mean,
yeah. And the cool thing is, Opeth wrote a song about your band, kind of, sort of. You know that song, right?
I've heard the song. I've heard this. They've got a song called Heir Apparent.
Yeah, I don't know if that was the Inception. I was just saying that, but I wouldn't surprise me. Mike knows an awful lot about music. He's a big '70s, '80s prog nerd, so it wouldn't shock me.
Well, I would be pleasantly flattered if there was anything behind that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've you know, when I search for the band name, the first thing that comes up is Opeth doing that song.
Yeah. It's a killer song too. It's one of the best songs too, man. Are you familiar with them at all? Do you keep up with any like more modern rock or metal?
I kind of intentionally stay away from listening to a lot of peers.
Okay.
Just to avoid influence.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know,
I know what you're saying.
I've got the fundamental roots of my inspirations, right, from the 70s and early 80s. Mm-hmm. And then I just pretty much, as soon as I started writing songs, I kind of stopped listening to other bands.
Interesting.
I mean, I only bought a couple Iron Maiden albums after Number of the Beast. I stayed in touch with the Queensryche stuff because I totally admire those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's, you know, and then the grunge thing happened, and you know, we played a show with Jerry in Diamond Live before Alice in Chains was formed, and I ran sound for a Mistrust gig where the other Alice in Chains, when they were still dressed up as, in drag,
Elaine,
doing
Elaine
Queen,
led,
doing Queen of the Rodeo and stuff.
Yeah.
I ran sound at one of those shows at the University of Washington, and so I kind of kept in touch with buying the Soundgarden stuff, the Alice in Chains stuff. I love Alice in Chains.
Oh man, what a great band.
And that kind of stuff. But the only real band that I continued to follow through the 90s was all of the Black Sabbath with Tony Martin.
Oh, it's great, man. I love
Yeah.
Animus Cross, man.
I mean, I just absolutely love that era of Black Sabbath.
Yeah. At the Eternal Idol, have you heard the Ray Gillen demos where Ray Gillen sang?
Yes.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
God, that guy was, I saw him with Badlands, man. We won't get into the personal character thing and all that stuff, but man, what a singer. Him in front of Sabbath. And I love Tony too, because I love those Tony albums. I even like Forbidden. The new Forbidden actually doesn't sound too bad to me. But here's the guy. This is the guy right here. This is the guy that's responsible for my cash diffusion right into Terry's wallet. Thanks. We're going to get to that. I'm jumping around here because I'm all excited. But so Kim has to bail out on you guys. You do the demo. How do we get from the demo then to actually finally getting this album recorded and put out?
Well, it basically took all the money that I had, and we would put together promo packages, because back in those days, that's what you had to do. You had to buy a notebook, press up some cassettes, do some 8x10 glossy photos, write some cover letters. Basically, you're spending about $10 to put this promo pack together, and then you make as many of those as you can afford, probably 15 or 20 of them, and then you just send them out to all the, send them to the labels in LA, send them to Europe, to some magazines, and hope somebody bites, right? Mm-hmm. And we couldn't, there was no music infrastructure in Seattle back in those days. There was a management group that was doing some things for Heart, but they didn't care about the metal thing.
No, of course not. Yeah.
At that point, so there was nothing up here at all for us to do. There was very few venues to play. There just weren't any opportunities, right? So we had to hustle, and we spent our money on promo packages and sent some things out. Got all the rejection letters from everybody, and Kim and Diane are off and running with Queensryche, and we're totally in the rearview mirror. And so it's like, well, I guess, how do we make things happen on our own, right? No manager, no financing, nothing. So just hustling and sending stuff out, and we started getting some feedback from some European magazines. So, I'm up at 2 or 3 in the morning, calling people in Europe, answering all the mail, corresponding with everybody, just trying to generate interest.
Yeah.
And before the internet, that was what you had to do, right? So we're living totally, hand to mouth, and just trying to hustle and make things happen, because you don't want guys quitting and, geez, I got to go get a job. I'm going to move across town and see you later kind of stuff, right? So
very real life stuff, though, because a lot of bands that were very good back in the day never got even to where you guys got, because they couldn't. Guys are just like, dude, I got to bail. I got to eat.
Yeah. If you don't have somebody, if somebody doesn't have rich parents, or, that's going to support things and help you take off or lift off, or you got a friend of a friend who happens to know somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't have connections or money, you're behind the 8 ball.
Super hard. Yeah.
So, and that's the situation that we were in. So, we ended up getting some good interest on the first demo, able to get a couple of special radio play things in Seattle on KZOK and KISW. They had some Best of the Northwest and some local music stuff that they would do occasionally, like on a Saturday night or something like that. And so they'd play a couple songs from some local bands, and so we were a part of that now and then. And one day I get a call from a guy who managed a record store a few miles from my house. And he said, "Hey, I've got some French record label that got a hold of me, and they want to know if I can, they want to find you." Right.
Wow.
So he hunted me down because my number was in the phone book. And so it's like, okay, well, gee, Chuck, you're our manager, right? So
is that how it worked back in the day?
Yeah, it's like,
yeah,
hey,
right.
Yeah, you
took a phone call. You're the guy.
Yeah, you want to be our manager? Okay. So he was the liaison between us and the record label, and so we started communicating with Black Dragon. And by that time, since we had the interest on the '84 demo, basically six or so months later, I had borrowed another $5,000 from some friends, and literally neighbors, a neighborhood family that we grew up with, and borrowed $5,000 from them, and we were able to record the first half of Graceful Inheritance. And so we take a break from the studio in like, I think it was April or something of '85, and then we drove to Eastern Washington and did that live TV show. I don't know if you've seen that video of the
I have. I'm gonna look for that.
Yeah.
We'll pull that up and we'll play it at the end. Yeah.
But
that's funny. You know what that reminded me of? Now that was a live video, right?
Yeah, live on television.
And there's a live audience there. But the funny thing is, it reminds me an awful lot of Warlords and the Cannons of Destruction. Have you ever seen that? Where they have this big elaborate production, and it's, spotlights on the guy, on the different various players. And then you come to find out later, there was no audience there. It was all just production people, and they were just shooting this live, this video. But yours was live. I wanted to ask you about that.
Well, it was live, but it was at college. It was in their TV studio at the college, right?
Oh, okay.
We jump in a van, we drive over to Eastern Washington, and we go to Cheney at Eastern Washington University. We walk into this room, and it's basically a television studio, and it's like, okay, there's your stage. And so we set up really quick, and we took Tom Hall with us because we were in the middle of recording the album. So we took a 2 or 3 day break. And we went over there and set up and played live on cable. It was a cable television network.
Cable access.
Yeah. And we were sweating bullets. It's like, TV cameras in your face and all that kind of stuff. And so it was exhilarating. And at the same time, you're kind of beside yourself in panic saying, this is live, man. I hope we do okay. Right.
Let's play a minute or two over there. Hang on one sec.
That's the guitar that I made when I was in high school.
What's that busy bass?
For the matter to begin.
You guys are playing the unison harmonies.
Dying for a lesson be told. And we will not find out after that. When you're daring to approach the dragon's lair, the dragon beckons you nearer. And if they get so damn strong, you got no fear. You will pick.
All right, so Terry, when you watch that back now, 40-some years later, what are you thinking? Are you going, holy shit, those zebra pants I was wearing? Go look at those things.
I forgot my leg warmers. So
yes, you did.
I had the
fashions. Good.
Yeah,
Lord.
I had the Capuzio shoes, but I forgot the leg warmers. But yeah, that guitar that I played in that video, that was the one that got stolen. I made that guitar body when I was like in junior high school wood shop, and finally got the guitar put together by '79, and then that was the one that got stolen. Both guitars in that show were the ones that got stolen.
Derek's too.
Huh?
Derek's bass too, or
No, Derek's
Oh.
bass didn't. He took his bass home.
Oh, he had, okay.
So we lost the keyboards and the guitars.
And you never found it again? You never heard?
I got the Kramer guitar back a few years later.
Okay.
Ray was at a gig in Renton, and some guitar player was using it. So I went down. I drove down and got it. He called the police, and and I told the cops, yeah, that's my guitar. It was stolen a year ago. I'm not leaving without it. The cops are telling the guy, you don't have to give it to him. It's his word against yours. And I said, fuck that. That's my guitar, and I'm taking it home.
Yeah. You're a big
but I never
guy
got,
too, so.
I never got the Zebrawood one back. So.
Oh, bummer. What you actually made that guitar yourself, the whole thing?
I made the body back in junior high school, and then the neck was from a Gibson Marauder that I had in my first real guitar that I had bought, I think, in '77, and I ended up shaving down the neck and cutting the headstock down and kind of reshaping it and putting in different pickups and wired everything up. I eventually put it all together, but yeah, the neck is cannibalized from a Gibson Marauder.
How about that, man? What pickups? Do you remember what pickups you used back then?
Yeah, those were Carbon M77s.
Yeah,
from Carbon.
they were
Yeah,
big back then. Yeah.
and though Tom Hall told me at the time when we went in to record, he said that guitar, he loved the way that thing sounded.
Yeah.
It
You
was
had a very
guitar.
unique guitar sound for that era, and I'm curious, before we dig deeper into some of the further catalog, what were you using as far as amps back then? And I know you use Johnson's now, which I've never even heard of those before. I guess that was a short-lived boutique brand, but what were you using then, and like what was your effects situation? Were you a rack guy, or were you a foot pedal guy mostly in the beginning, or how'd that work out for you?
It was foot pedals at that time. There was I had Gallion Krugers. They had they were famous for the bass amps later on.
Yeah.
When they first came out, I'm getting some echo now since you went to that video, but
oh shit. Real? Oh, I know why. Hang on. Give me 1 sec. I forgot to put the echo cancellation back on. I'm a rookie here. All right, you should be better now. How's that?
yeah, that's a lot better.
Okay, sorry about that. So go ahead.
So, I had when I was working, I had a job at Guitar Center in '79 for a few months, and Gallion Kruger came out with the guitar amp, a little single 12.
I remember it.
100-watt guitar amp, and I just loved the way it sounded. It was solid state. It was like one of the first solid state amps that sounded decent.
Yep.
And everybody was into tubes back then, so it's like solid state was this brand new thing, and everybody was like, hey, we can't do that.
I'm pretty sure Alex Lifeson used those though.
He might have. I know that Ronnie Montrose did.
Mm-hmm.
He was an endorsee from that back in those days. So I just fell in love with that amp. So I had a 1980 model, and then a year later they came out with a slightly different version. With a little bit different gain structure and EQ and stuff. So I bought that one too. So I basically had 2 amps, so I could run stereo. And then I started getting into rack gear. So I bought it was crazy. I bought a Lexicon Super Primetime digital delay.
I remember those.
And it was $3,000.
I remember those.
Right?
Yeah, I remember those.
So I put that in my rack, and I bought one of the MXR, the very early harmonizers. And so for when I played clean tones back then, I had an octave up.
Yeah.
And this is like 12-bit technology, really early digital stuff.
Yep.
A lot of artifacts, but it was different, right?
Very different.
So I could kind of get a little bit of a 12-string chimey sound on the guitar, and so yeah, I had a stereo rig that I kind of cobbled together, and that was the fundamental root of that sound. Before that I had a Marshall 100-watt head, and I could never turn it up loud enough to get a decent sound out of it, so I had to use a Rat distortion pedal.
Distortion pedal. Yeah, that was the big distortion du jour pedal back then, the Rat. Yep.
Yeah, so
Great.
I had a Rat and an Echoplex and a wah-wah. And
the real Echoplex.
Oh yeah, the real Echoplex.
Oh fuck, man!
I had those, and I'd get down on my knees and I'd do all the crazy stuff with the feedback and grabbing the bar and moving around and get the violin bow and did the whole Jimmy Page thing.
Oh man, no way!
I did all that stuff back then.
You had a very wet sound, and I mean it does. Let's be honest. Now it kind of sounds of the era, the '80s. It was very very processed, as you said, like the lexicon. I got a lexicon reflex here. It's acting as a CD holder right now. I just piece of gear. I got a quad Cortex I'm fucking around with right now. But I mean, I get where you're coming from, because that Gailey and Kruger, you're right, Solid State, they had a very unique voicing sound. They were very, I mean, that was pre Line 6 too.
Oh yeah.
Like, this was the early going stuff. And I mean, the only other amps I can think of that the Yamahas did I can't remember the model number. Ty Tabor used those solid states. And I know Frank Marino was big on using acoustic solid state amps too. And they give you such a stable growl, you know what I mean, that you don't really get with a tube amp. They just have a unique voicing. And that was the one thing about this album right away that stood out to me. I'm like, man, this doesn't really sound like anybody else's guitar sound.
Well, yeah, part of that was just the reality of economics, right? Trying to cobble things together.
Sure.
But yeah, it's, we tried to set ourselves apart every way that we could. And at the same time, because it's kind of ironic, this is before metal had 49 subgenres.
Exactly.
And,
yeah.
Where everybody got pigeonholed, and you can't, the elitism of all this, of the gatekeepers and everything. It's kind of crazy these days, right?
It is.
And because it just limits your artistic creativity. You can't play outside your box, or your audience will abandon you. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but yeah, back in those days, the goal was to try to come up with something different. And I guess looking back on it, if I can be proud of anything, it's the fact that we were kind of independent. We had to create our success. I mean, literally, just by scrambling and making things happen.
Now on this album, though, and I guess probably on the was he on? No, he was on the '84 demo. Did Ray? No, Ray came in for this album, right?
Yeah. Well, now, Jim left the band right after we did the July recording in '84. Jim was graduating from college with his percussion degree, and he'd gotten married, and his wife, it's like, hey, I'm tired of this. Time to get a job, right? Go use your education.
Yeah.
And so he didn't want to practice anymore, and so we needed a new drummer.
Yeah.
So,
but you still talk to him, right? I mean, you're still.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I thought. But now after this, you do go out on tour. Now you get involved with Black Dragon, or with what's it called, Black Dragon?
Yeah, Black Dragon.
Yeah, you get involved with them. Turns out they hose you raw pretty bad, but you do get over to Europe and you do some shows, I believe, with Savage Grace, right?
Yeah, we did a tour with Savage Grace, who was another one of their, I think it was one of their first bands. They had 7 or 8 bands on their roster, and Savage Grace was one of them. They had just come out with their second album about the same time we came out with our first. And so they set up a tour with us opening for Savage Grace. We started off in Paris, and then we went through Netherlands, did 4 or 5 shows in Netherlands, and then we did 5 or 6 shows in Germany. We were over there for about 6 weeks.
Wow.
And we started off opening for Savage Grace, and then by the time we got to the German leg of the tour, they swapped it. So we were headlining the German leg of the tour.
No kidding.
To finish
Yeah.
it.
How'd that go over with the Savage Grace dudes? Were they cool about it?
I think they were, yeah. I mean, they seemed to be cool about it. We were getting a lot more attention at that particular point in time, and I mean, they'd played some huge shows. I mean,
Okay.
And they had already done some pretty big things, and we were on our way up. And they seemed to be fine with it. It wasn't anything. I mean, we were told it was happening. We didn't.
You
say
didn't have a choice in the matter. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, hey, you guys are playing second now. Oh,
Wow.
okay.
Cool.
So, and that was the way that went. To get back to the Black Dragon thing, how we got a hold of them, we'd got in touch with them, and basically we had recorded the first half of the album with $5,000. So they gave us $5,000 to record the second half of the album.
Okay, I see. Okay.
And then, I had hired Matt Bazemore to do a painting for the album cover, which ended up being put out on some of the reissues.
Yeah, I believe it's this, right? Am I right?
Yes. Yeah, that was supposed to be the original album cover, and you can see that thematically it kind of makes sense, Heir Apparent and the whole
Right.
So that was the album art that I'd commissioned Matt to do. And then
You end up with this.
Black Dragon, January of '86 rolls around, and we get a box in the mail, and we open it up, and there's 30 of those.
Vinyl only, though, originally, right? Vinyl.
Yeah. Sight unseen, we open the box, and it's got this artwork on it, and we were horrified. It was like, what the hell is this, right? I mean, it's not that we didn't like the art as much as we didn't like the idea that they did it without consulting.
They didn't consult you, yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean, I'd already hired Matt to do the painting. Matt painted the warning cover for Queensryche.
Oh yeah, that's the guy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and he did the warning cover for Queensryche. He was almost our drummer. We were auditioning him and Ray side by side.
Wow.
And we ended up going with Ray. And so, we used Matt for the album art, and then Black Dragon does the switch on us without even letting us know. So we thought right off the bat, these guys aren't really,
on the up and up.
Well, they're just, they're not abiding by the contract. The contract basically says we have the right of approval of
right
of stuff, right?
Sure.
So right off the bat, we're getting red flags like, man, these guys aren't, they're not being straight up with us, right?
Yeah.
So then we go over and we do the tour, and then we get home from the tour, and by then the press was going crazy. Graceful Inheritance was really well received in Europe. It was the highest rated album in the history of Rock Hard magazine.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And I mean, higher than Master Puppets, higher.
Are
than
you getting like coverage with like Kerrang and all the Euro mags, the big ones?
All the Euro mags did stories on the band, and they all gave the album really high ratings. Kerrang slagged us.
Did they?
Yeah. We couldn't get anything out. They didn't give a fuck. So it's like, well, it's like, well, okay, whatever. Can't please everybody.
Sure.
But we thought we were on the verge of actually, having some kind of level of success. The album was never released in the United States, so we had all this stuff happening in Europe, and we couldn't get anybody in America to
sneeze at you.
It was, LA was still in the middle of, Poison and Motley Crue, and we were too heavy for what they were doing, and so we were kind of out on an island, and we came back from the tour, and here we are back home. Okay, now I got to find a place to live. I got to find a job. All of our equipment was delayed. We had to fly over. Out of Canada, because at that particular time was right after Reagan bombed Libya, bombed Gaddafi's palace. And France wouldn't let the American jets leaving Germany
fly
over their airspace, right?
Oh, wow.
So there was this big political fallout, and because because France made our jets fly out around France, stay out of their airspace on the way to Gaddafi's. One of our missiles went astray and took out the French embassy, evidently.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So anyway, it was a really bad time to be an American in France. And so the label flew us over for the tour out of Canada. We had to have, we had maple leaves stickers on all of our stuff, right? And they basically said, hey, pretend you're a Canadian band, right?
Okay. Wow. No shit.
Fly out of Vancouver. So we had to fly back into Vancouver. And so it's about, an hour and a half, 2 hours from Seattle.
Right.
Crossing the border and everything. Well, the U.S. Customs seized all of our equipment coming back into the country because we went through a Belgium border crossing leaving France at 2 o'clock in the morning and didn't get them to sign the carnet on our equipment.
Yeah.
Right. So U.S. Customs seizes our gear, and for 2 months, I had to fight with lawyers up and down the West Coast, and finally got the San Francisco Customs Office to send me a letter releasing the equipment. So then I had to drive up to Blaine and
pick it up
and get the gear. Right, we had a couple of 6-foot-long anvil cases, 3 feet wide, that weighed several hundred pounds, and I couldn't get Ray and Derek to bother helping me. So my wife and I drove up there and loaded these things up ourselves in the van, and we get up there and Customs is just pissed. It's like, what do you mean we have to let this? They put an $8,000 fine on us for not getting that carnet signed in Belgium.
Jeez.
They wanted money, and so I've got a release letter, and the guy is just blowing a fuse. It's like, what do you mean we have to let this go for free? And I said, well, you never should have taken it in the first place, right?
Wow.
So we get up there to get our gear, and these guys are all taking a cigarette break. There's 5 or 6 U.S. Customs guys standing around smoking cigarettes, watching my wife and I pack these 2 anvil cases into the back of my van. It's all we could do to lift them, right? And then we come to find out they had opened them up with crowbars, and they were sitting outside when we went to load them.
Oh no.
And so they'd been crowbarred open, the locks had been broken, and everything inside, every metal surface inside was rusty.
Oh.
So I had to take all my guitars apart and get all the corrosion off everything. I mean, all of our gear, all my rack stuff, everything.
Unreal.
Ray had an electronic drum set. He had a D-drum electronic kit.
Yeah. Shot.
So all the stuff we had, right? Everything was in there. And yeah. So thanks, U.S. Customs.
Wow, that is fucking. This is what, 86, right?
Yeah, 86.
So now, when you get back though, like, are you aware at that point that you're probably not gonna? Had they ever told you they were gonna release this in the States, or was that never part of the equation?
We just assumed that it would eventually get out, but they just, it didn't, right? So They had worldwide rights. And the only place I could find the album was if I went to Tower Records and went to the import section.
Import section, yeah.
They'd have a few, I mean, literally 3.
And then you're talking in the 80s, you're talking buying that for $35 versus 8 or 7 or 8 or 9. You're talking $25 or $30 you have to pay for that. I remember those days, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So we couldn't get any interest from anybody in the United States, and we had no management. So I mean, it's. Then we get back from the tour, and Derek leaves and joins Savage Grace to go tour with Motorhead. And then early 87, Paul starts losing his voice, and I've got interest from a couple of producers. I'd added a keyboard player because I thought, well, if we're gonna add another member to the band, I'd rather have keys instead of a second guitar. We have more versatility with a keyboard player. So I started working with a keyboard player in September of that year, and then we replaced Derek with Dwayne, and then we did that show at the Paramount, and our gear got stolen. So I mean, it's like a series of bad luck, right?
Dude, you do have some shitty luck. I gotta say. I mean, because it gets, but here's the thing, it actually gets worse. It gets worse. I know the history a little here, and it actually gets worse. So hang in there. This thing gets more fucked up, you know.
So, so yeah, we're
So Paul comes to you and says he can't sing anymore.
Paul, yeah, he basically it's like, hey man, I'm losing my voice. I just can't do this anymore. And
was it due to any health situation or just lifestyle thing or all of the above?
Yeah, lifestyle. He started hanging out with guys that were, he had,
I got it.
So he lost his voice, and meanwhile, we had been rehearsing at Triad Studios, Studio B. There was a real downturn in the music industry at the end of '86. Triad Studios had 2 rooms. They had an A room and a B room, and they couldn't keep the studio booked. So they were willing to rent us Studio B for $350 a month. I mean, cheap. Unbelievable, right?
Cheap. Yeah, very cheap,
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I have 24-hour access to this studio to go in and set up my PA and basically have a home base rehearsal room,
have a live show,
soundproof studio to rehearse and reform this band. We need a new bass player. We've just added keyboards. Now we need to find a singer. And I've been doing we had a couple producers interested in us. We did the demo for We the People. And tomorrow night we had Ray come in for that. Ray was kind of in and out too. I mean, he was, there was the band thing was just kind of really loose at that point.
A lot of commitment issues, I guess, huh?
Yeah. So, it was a matter of, do we need a drummer too? We don't know. We've been writing a lot of songs. The keyboard player and I, Michael and I had been working with a studio drummer to flesh out a lot of song ideas, and then we bring in Ray to actually do the recording stuff. So anyway, we did these demos, and while we're in Studio B one day, we overhear this singer in Studio A. And it's like, holy hell, who is that? And so we find out, it's like, who is that singer? Where is this guy? We got to get him, right?
Yeah.
And like, oh, that's a band from Portland called French Kiss. So we hunted them down. We got a hold of Steve's contact information, and Ray and I jumped in a car one day and drove down to Portland. Met him he was working at a furniture store.
No way.
And we talked him into moving to Seattle and joining the band. So I loan him $400 to move up here, and Ray finds him a place to live, and I get him a job working setting tile I get him a job setting tile with my brother and I, and we just start going. Then Derek comes back, right? So we've got this. All of a sudden, we've got this singer that's got a 5-octave range, very similar to Jeff Tate.
Very similar to Jeff Tate, yeah.
And it's like, holy hell, there's light at the end of the tunnel, right? So Derek comes back from Savage Grace. So it's basically the original rhythm section again with
a new vocalist and a keyboardist.
Yeah. Right. So we start writing songs. And this is early '87, and I'm already hustling and planning new stuff. So I'm negotiating with Semaphore Records, which is some kind of a subsidiary of Warner at the time.
Yeah, I remember that label.
To do a live DVD, a live album DVD. So I plan a 4th of July show at St. Martin's Pavilion on the 4th of July. And this is the show where Slaughterhouse 5 and Diamond Lie opened up.
Oh, okay.
For us, and so I had set up a remote recording truck, hired these guys out of Portland to come up with their remote truck. They were going to record the whole gig, a 4-camera film crew. So I'm basically sticking my neck out.
Big time, man.
I'm negotiating a record deal for a live DVD. I've got the production already fleshed out. These guys are there. and we're going for it. And it's Steve's first show, and he'd only been in the band for about a month.
Wow.
So he's cramming to learn lyrics and everything. Well, as it turns out, he forgot a few lyrics now and there. We had some technical problems, and the camera crew had some technical problems, and the sound company had some technical problems. And I didn't have the money to follow through, and I didn't have an extra couple $1,000s to finish the production of everything. So nothing happened with any of it. Right. So I ended up getting a hold of the raw video footage, like, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years ago. A guy that was in a band locally ran into somebody who knew somebody who had the tapes. Right?
Wow, crazy.
So anyway, I've got ironically, the cameras worked really good during Diamond Lie's show. So I've got a great tape of Jerry Cantrell's band.
Can you do anything with it? Have you done anything with it?
I would love to give Jerry a copy of it. I've had people beg me to post it online and put it on YouTube. It's like, I'm not authorized to do that. I'm not gonna go out and throw that stuff out there, publish that when I don't, it's not mine.
Yeah.
I don't have the right to do that, but I would love to be able to get Jerry a copy of it.
I might be able to hook you up there. I know some people. I do know somebody that knows Mike Inez very well. I've met Mike, and Jerry's super fucking cool, man. That guy is like the coolest of cool guys. He'd probably love to. Let me see what I can do there for you. I'll dig around a little bit and see if I can connect you two guys. But so what happened with the footage for you? It just didn't. Is it trashed or?
There's a handful of really, the best stuff that was available that I could pull from our show is on our YouTube channel for the Heir Apparent channel of St. Martin. Just look up St. Martin's Pavilion in 1987. Okay. And there's 4 or 5 video clips there. The audio is not good. The film quality is sketchy, but it's one of the only videos that we've got that has Steve in it at all.
That band's performing. Yeah.
And ironically, had things worked out, it would have been a pretty decent show. A good audience. The performance wasn't bad. Steve could have fixed a couple little lines where he messed up some lyrics,
right?
And we'd have been able to salvage something. And it probably would have been really nice. So,
but you guys ended up doing the Triad live stuff. I think Steve sang on 2 tracks, right? That you actually officially recorded initially. This is before you do actually get to this album here.
Yeah.
But you did the Triad live stuff of the old material, right?
Well, we did I think it was January of '88, I believe. Queensryche, before Queensryche recorded the Warning album, they went to Triad and they did a live to 2-track pre-production recording that they sent over to EMI in England,
right,
before they went to record the Warning. And Tom Hall played me a copy of that, and it was phenomenal. So for a long time, it's like I wanted to do a live in studio recording,
right?
And so basically, I think it cost us like $400 that day or something. We brought Tom in and we mic'd everything up, and just like a typical day of rehearsal.
Yeah, right.
We just ran through all the songs in the state that they were in at that time during the writing.
Right. This is the songs that are going to be that are actually going to become this album. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And we were still messing with different arrangements, and all the solos are improvised. I didn't know what I really wanted to do on all that, so we were basically just jamming through everything. But we thought, let's make a recording so that we have a live representation of where we're at right now at this point in time.
Yeah, right. And that's on here. The full 13 tracks are on here, and then also the We the People, which are the studio tracks, and Keeper of the Rain, right? Those were the 2 studio tracks.
Yeah, we took we had Keeper of the Rain from the first album, right?
Right.
So when Steve came into the band, we thought, well, we need to represent our new singer. You know, let's put a demo together of our new singer. So we had Steve come in and sing over Paul's parts.
Right.
So Paul's original tracks, I mean, it's a 24-track tape, right? So space is limited.
Right.
So Steve needed a couple tracks, and the only place to put it was over the top of Paul. So we've essentially lost Paul's
yeah.
Right. His original performance is pretty much gone. I ended up bringing him back in my garage here 5, 6 years ago, and he re-recorded it for the upcoming remix of the entire album.
Okay. You remixing the whole thing then? Okay.
Yeah, Tom's been woodshedding a little bit to remix the entire Graceful Inheritance album with modern technology.
Wow.
So cool. Kind of looking forward to that. That's our next little surprise that now has been.
Yeah, you just released it.
I just announced it.
The whole world is just going a gag right now. But it's funny because when I got the reissue here, this is the reissue, and this is remixed too, because I don't think you were very happy with the guitars on this, right?
Yeah, do
you want to get into that whole story about everything? Do you want to dig down in there? It's fascinating. I read it and I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, well, a lot of it, you know, I could never get, even when Ray and Derek were back involved, you know, from 2000 on, I could never really get them to open up about things very much. And tell me, so a lot of this is supposition on my part in terms of what happened and why. But long story short is I was about $20,000 in debt on behalf of the band through 84, 85, 86, 87, recording these demos, putting promo packages together, basically, you know, money from my folks, my friends, my wife.
You were underwriting the cost of doing business as the band.
Yeah. And basically I was borrowing money and I was promising to pay back debts to people, you know, as we progressed, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sitting about $20,000 in debt by 87, 88, and negotiating with Metal Blade for about a year. And we finally come to an agreement. They've got a deal with Capitol Records for distribution, with Metal Blade as the label, but Capitol is the distributor. So they were going to do this co-branding thing.
Right.
And so they present us with a 7-album deal for $600,000 in recording advances. And the first album was a $25,000 budget.
Which we should just interject real quick, and you'll know this even better than I do, but I know it pretty well from being around during that era. But these 6-7 album deals were not uncommon. I mean, Fifth Angel had the same thing happen when Epic bought out their contract from Shrapnel. They got this big, and theirs was like 1.2 mil or something crazy like that. And I'm friends with Ed and Ken, pretty good friends with those guys. And Ed and I had a similar conversation like you and I are having here, and he's like, "It's total bullshit, man. It's
yeah.
You don't see all that money. You don't see hardly any of it.
You don't see any of it because it's recording advances.
Exactly. Yeah,
right?
Which you got to pay back anyway out of sales.
Yeah, you have to pay it back out of sales, and everything is conditional on the success of the previous album.
Exactly.
So it's a 7-album deal, but all that means is that if they don't like your first album, you don't get a second one.
Exactly. You're done.
Right?
Yep.
You're done. And they're only paying you back, you know, I mean, the band's share of a $15.99 CD sold was 95 cents.
Oh my God.
Right.
And now were they giving you with that contract, were they putting you guys on salary at all or no?
No.
Okay.
No salary, no nothing. It's like
they did that in the 70s and the early 80s, but then it transitioned to this deal.
Yeah, it was like, okay, so I'm going to sell a CD for $15.99, or a vinyl album for like $12.99 or whatever,
Right.
and I'm gonna see 95 cents. But then
You got to split that 4 ways, 5 ways,
5 ways.
5 ways.
But you can't split that 5 ways until after your manager takes 15%.
Exactly.
And your
booking
lawyer
agent, your booking agent,
and your lawyer takes 15%.
lawyer.
Right. So we had a lawyer in LA. We had a girl acting as our manager at the time. And so 30% right off the top. So your 95 cents turns into 63.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're dividing that 5 ways. So you make 12 cents, right? So my share of an album was 12 cents. You know how many albums you have to sell to make $20,000 just to survive a year in 1987?
You got to sell probably 300,000, 200,000 albums. Yeah,
at least, right?
Yeah.
And by then you've made the record company millions.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
They've made millions because they're getting $7 or $8 out of that 15.
Yep.
And they're paying you 90 cents, and you're supporting a manager and an agent, and then you're dividing 12, you got your 12 cents.
Fucking
so
unreal.
Anyway,
Unreal.
So that was the situation. And
so you were dealing with Metal Blade, and then what happened then?
Okay, so I'm 20. We recorded the first album for about 10 grand. We were essentially living at Triad Studios, rehearsing 5 days a week. We were tight. We were good. We were ready to go. We didn't need to spend $25,000 on that album. I figured we could easily record that album for 20 grand, and I could at least take. So I went to the guys and I said, guys, I'm $20,000 in debt.
Yeah.
We've just signed a deal. Everybody who's loaned us money for the last 3 or 4 years knows that. Yep. They're expecting something. I want to take 5 grand out of that $25,000 budget and make a good faith gesture to these handful of people that we owe money to.
They've helped us out. Get where we are. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And let alone the fact that Lars Nevsker and Tom Hall wanted producer fees too, right?
Yeah.
They wanted 5 grand to be able to for their work, right?
Yep.
So the band refused to pay them extra things. So they're getting their hourly salary from working at Triad Studios, but nothing more. The band refused to give them anything for their extra effort and attention and all that stuff. So,
Now, Terry, hold on. If I could just interject one question here. When you say the band, you're talking about collectively the 5 of you. You're saying we should do this, and the other 4 are saying, no, let's not do that.
Yeah. So they denied me, right? They said, no, Terry, we don't give a fuck about those people that loaned us money to get to this point. A couple of the guys weren't in the band when some of those debts occurred, so they didn't believe they had any responsibility for that. It's like,
right.
Well, dude, you wouldn't have had a band to join if this didn't happen.
It wasn't for that money, exactly. Right? Yeah,
So I'm pretty pissed off. I'm sitting on $20,000 in debt, and now I've got to confront all these people who are expecting some kind of payment and not getting one because the guys in the band essentially refused. So they refused to pay Tom and Lars. They refused to pay the people that we were in debt to, and they start formulating replacing me. So they work with the girl who was acting as our manager in LA, and they start planning my exit. Right. So we finished the album.
And you started.
Yeah.
You started and financed.
The band I started and financed and bought the trademark and the trade name, federally registered the Heir Apparent as my brand name. And I had been begging the guys at that point for 4 years, we need to sign a partnership agreement, right?
Yeah.
I solidified that name and that trademark back in '85 because I had a lawyer saying you need to do this. That's part of the business, right? You need to treat this like a business.
Yeah,
right?
a partnership of 5 guys. Yeah.
So I'm begging these guys to join a partnership so that we share in the profits as well as the responsibilities and the debts.
Exactly.
They totally refuse. So I'm out on a limb. They refused a partnership, and then they start going behind my back to form this coup to kick me out of my own band. So, and in the Metal Blade contract, I am specified as the sole leader with all rights of approvals for all the decisions.
Right.
It's and I didn't insist on that language there. They put it there.
That was their thing. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They
made you were basically the business contact, essentially.
Yeah. So they designated me the leader. That was nothing that I insisted on. Okay. So it turns out, long story short, is we go to film, or we go to take pictures for the we have a band thing in March of 89.
Mm-hmm.
We finished the album around the end of the year in 88. So a few months go by. We're all getting together for photographs in like March.
And you're aware of this or not aware of this?
I'm not aware of this. I think
not aware yet.
I think there's something a little sketchy going on, because I am trying to book gigs and I'm trying to book rehearsal, and nobody seems to be anxious to go rehearse or anything.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, hey, we got an album coming out. We've got to go out and start setting up some gigs. And
right.
And they had taken, in their ruse to be generous and take some of the weight off my shoulders of doing all the marketing and management and everything.
Right.
They volunteered to, well, let's have Ray's mom take over the fan club and all the correspondence and all that stuff. So hand over all the stuff, hand over all the contact information, hand over all the magazines. We'll let Ray's mom take care of all this stuff, and you don't have to worry about it anymore, right?
Yeah.
So I turn all the stuff over, and I'm thinking, okay, this doesn't feel right. This is sketchy, right? So I know there's something going on, right? And then throughout the production of the album, I come to find out that Steve and Michael took the tapes from Triad, went to a second studio. They went to Bear Creek Studios, did a bunch of extra overdubs. And this is the galling part, right? They refused to take $5,000 off the budget to pay debts. They refused to take $5,000 off as a thank you for the production of Tom and Lars.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have the gall to take the album $5,000 over budget by putting on the overdubs and extra vocal tracks. Steve had an entire 24-track secondary reel of backing vocals and other parts.
Wow.
So
at the other studio.
So when it's time to actually mix the album, they had to pull the machine out of Studio B, take it into Studio A, link up two 24-track machines, because there was a whole secondary 24-track 2-inch reel.
Of vocal takes.
Yeah, and those tapes are $250 a piece, right? So there's half a dozen of those hooked up, chaining two machines together to mix this album, and taking the whole thing over budget. And where
was that money coming from? Like how could Steve just walk up there and go, hey, just contact, Terry, he'll cover it? Was that what they did?
They had to have gone to the label behind my back. So the lawyer that was behind the thing, that was supposedly our lawyer,
mm-hmm.
right? The manager, the lawyer, get together with the record company and collude this whole thing to sweep me out the back door. So we meet in March of 89. We do a photo session. The manager's there. She talks me into walking a couple blocks, take a little break, walk a couple blocks away and go get a sandwich for lunch. And while I'm over there, they take the pictures that end up on the album. And then the album comes out in June of 89, and it says guitar parts performed by, right? So
yeah,
if you look at the original One Small Voice album.
Oh, it's the original, because it's not on this one. Yeah.
Yeah, the reissue is us, right?
That's right.
I had control of that, so I used the, I used the real logo and all that stuff. So they put out this album with this chicken scratch logo. That was really weird on the original One Small Voice.
I'll have to hunt one of those down. They're probably not cheap, I would imagine.
Well, you can find photos of it all over the place.
Okay,
so,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
while you're talking about that, go ahead.
It's got a weird logo that they threw together somehow. It's got a picture of just 4 guys, and then it says guitar parts performed by Terry Gorle. Like I was never even in the band.
Wow.
Right? So that's what happened. So in June, I don't even know what's happening. All I know is that I've been told that I've been told that they're moving on without me. So I start, I start threatening a lawsuit because, hey, it's my band, it's my name, it's my trademark.
Right.
What the hell are you guys doing? You're not going to leave me holding the bag in this debt, right?
I mean, dude, that is fucked up. I can't even believe that, man. I see it here. I got it right here.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
So
well, okay. So the obvious question there is, you did file a lawsuit, I believe, correct?
I did file a lawsuit. Got in front of this old judge who had come in. I don't know if he had just about retired or was ready to retire or whatever, but he couldn't give a damn about a bunch of long-haired kids.
Sure.
Arguing about a record deal. So long story short is I get talked into settling for basically legal fees, which didn't address the $20,000 in debt whatsoever.
Right.
All it did was find them guilty and responsible to pay all the legal fees and return legitimate ownership of the trademark and trade name to me, right? Which I had in the first place, right? So as soon as I presented the business license to them, they knew they didn't have a case. But they still stalled it for, as long as they possibly could because they were on tour with Crimson Glory.
Oh, were they actually out with Crimson Glory? Was that the one that in the States here?
Yeah.
Shit, I remember talking to Ben about that, and I'm like, dude, I'd never even heard about that tour. I didn't know Crimson Glory came to Philly back then. I didn't know that you guys, so you weren't with them actually.
I think, I wasn't with the band at that point, but
who was playing guitar?
They had a guy named Klaus Derendorf play guitar, who's, I guess since then become some kind of a producer. He's got a bunch of Grammys or whatever.
Okay, never heard of him.
But he was like a GIT whiz kid. I mean, really good guitar player.
Okay.
So yeah, they hired a really good guitar player, and they went out and toured with Crimson Glory, and I was instructed by my lawyer to essentially remain invisible, right? Don't say anything, don't do anything.
Okay.
Just bide your time and prove that you still have interest in being heir apparent, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So meanwhile, these guys are out parading around doing gigs as heir apparent. And all the stuff that we finally go through all this crap and I'm on the verge of thinking, hey, we're just about ready to do something here, and then it all just gets, I just get swept right out.
And they literally yanked your band away from you.
Yeah. I just got the rug pulled out from underneath me, and I'm still holding all the debt. Right. So, long story short is, I spent most of the 90s, I was a union tile setter for years, bought a house, bought jet skis, spent most of the 90s riding jet skis. And
not a bad thing.
Then the internet happens, and 98, 99, my neighbor is working at the Microsoft campus, and he starts surfing these internet forum boards.
Yeah. And
he starts seeing people talking about Heir Apparent tapes. So he mentions, hey, my neighbor was the guitar player. So all of a sudden his inbox is is getting
filled with all these.
Yeah, it's like wow. Okay, so now I got a fire lit underneath me to try to get something going again.
Mm-hmm.
So I start, basically sending out emails. I built a website. I taught myself HTML, built my first computer, bought all the parts, and just put it together.
Nice.
I just, I'm just one of those kind of guys. I just do everything myself because I can't pay somebody else.
All right.
So I built a website. I did all these things. Then I get contacted by Hellion Records in Germany, who they want to do reissues, and it's like, okay, well, I didn't have, for some reason I didn't have the original artwork painting from Matt. I couldn't locate it. There was some reason that I didn't use that, but I had a watercolor that Matt had done of an old man's hand holding a pillow with a young child's hand reaching up, and it was a watercolor that he had done. So I used that as the album cover for the Hellion reissue.
Yeah, I've seen that one. Yeah.
And then I saw a bunch of European magazines where people were bootlegging the 87 or the 88 live tape. They were bootlegging it and selling it for $20 on CD.
Right.
So I thought, well, fuck the bootleggers. I'll go ahead and officially remaster the cassette tapes and put it out as Triad, and that'll be the pre One Small Voice demos, right? So I did that with Hellion Records, and then they
just so I could interrupt for 1 sec. This is the cover you're talking about right here, right?
Yeah, that's a watercolor that Matt made. That was one of the early other concepts for the first album.
Yeah, so that was the Hellion reissue, and then the Triad, which I didn't. You're gonna laugh a little bit, but I'm seeing if I can. There it is, right there. In my Quest. Look at that. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Can you see that? Let me see. Hold on. I want to show you something here. Check this shit out. This is crazy, man. This is crazy. Do you see that?
Yeah, I see that.
Do you see the price?
$249.
I just bought it for $15 on Discogs last night.
I've got 20 of them in a box right next to my desk.
Well, this is the funny thing. I didn't realize that I already have Triad. It's on here.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize. I'm like, fuck, wait a minute. That looks like it is the same thing. Now I just have the one with the funky artwork. But I mean,
see, and the artwork, the cover of that album, that's a photograph. I was teaching myself Photoshop back in the day too.
Okay.
That's a photograph of a shipwreck down.
That's what I thought, a shipwreck
on the Oregon coast, Peter Iredale.
Okay.
And I took a photo of that, put it in Photoshop, tried to make it look real spacey, like it was on a moonscape with some laser beams in the distance of the solar system shooting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can't see that good on the blow up there, but you can see it better on the actual image there. Yeah.
So I had a vision of
a little better there.
Too. Yeah. I just didn't have the skills to get it done properly, but
sure. That's crazy, but I thought you'd find that a little funny that in my haste to go buy everything that's Heir Apparent, I went and bought that last time. I'm like, wait a minute, hold it. And then I pulled out the foundation. I'm like, I already have this. Now I got another copy of it. Don't worry. It's not the first time I bought something I've already owned many times over. But I wanted to go back to this real quick, if you don't mind. So this came with the reissue, the Northwest Metalworks, who's a friend of yours, Paul, right? Is that his name, Paul?
The Northwest Metalworks is Brian Nairn and God, I'm spacing on his name, James.
James.
Yeah.
God, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm totally running blank on his last.
No, you're all right, because I bought the reissue vinyl, okay, which is the yellow, the remixed reissue, the vinyl. And he's like, hey, I said, yeah, I'm looking at, I don't even know how we got to talking, but we were emailing back and forth. He said, hey, tell Terry you're talking, I think it was James. And he's like, tell Terry you're talking to James, because I helped him put that together and put the reissue out.
Yeah, those are great guys. I mean, they've done a book on the whole metal scene here, and they've been very, very supportive.
But the funny part is the CD I got somewhere else, like on Discogs for 25 or 30 bucks. And it came with this, and I'm like, man, check it out. I got it. Oh, it's just a postcard. It's not actual real signatures.
Well,
I thought I lucked out and got like the jackpot, and I'm like, look at me, man. I'm like, oh, it's not real. But
I still have a couple of those that are real.
Yeah, oh, real ones?
Yeah. We made a bunch of those photos. The photo session there that is that excerpt. The reason that nobody's standing together is that we took these shots before that 4th of July pavilion show when Paul was still in the band.
Okay.
So we had a photo session. We all took individual shots and we took a bunch of band shots. Well, then Steve joins the band.
Yeah.
And so we had to send him down by himself for some individual shots. And then we put this promo thing together. But the original one I think it's got the P.O. box that I had on there. P.O. Box 55956 or whatever it is.
It's not on here. It's just the
okay.
Stuff. Yeah, there's the.
So they changed some of that. Yeah, it used to have my contact information on it with our P.O. box for the Air Force headquarters.
So here's the question I gotta ask, and you may be like, I gotta defer answering this, but I gotta ask it. You know what's coming, right?
I'm not totally sure what's coming.
Who do you blame all the guys? Do you blame one specific guy? Do you think one specific guy was spearheading this whole thing? Do you think the manager was behind this? Do you think the label was behind it? Like, what do you know now that you didn't know then? Maybe is the question.
I never could get a clear answer out of Ray and Derek. Derek did profusely apologize to me at one point for all the stuff that happened 30 years ago. I think they were all in on it to a certain extent because the singer is always the hardest thing to find, right?
Always, yeah.
And so if the singer says it's him or me, the other guys are going to go, hey, okay, well, it's him then.
Well, we can always find a guitar player,
Yeah.
Even though that guy writes pretty much everything, or he's the guy that owns all the debt. Yeah, let's definitely get rid of him.
Let's get rid of the guy that's holding the bag of money or the bag of debt. Yeah. So so I think
you do have we should say you do have a relationship with Derek, obviously, and Ray.
Derek and Ray, I mean, they came. I invited. I thought when this whole thing took off again in 2000, and we got invited to go play Whackin' and put out the reissues at Hellion. I thought, well, fuck it, I'm taking the high road. I took the money, the advances from the reissues of Graceful Inheritance and Triad. That advance money that I got from Hellion, I went back to the family that loaned us $5,000, and I paid back 2 of those people 12, 14 years after the fact to clear up that debt. I took that money and paid them off. Ray's parents invested some of the money in our More Theater show in 1984. I paid Ray $500 to repay his own parents. So
you're a man of principle. You're not fucking around with that shit. And do you have relationships with those guys? I assume you have no relationship with Steve and with Mike.
Michael has made an appearance on YouTube now and then over the years to flame me, and I don't know what his problem is. I guess he just never grew up. I don't know. I told him, I said, hey, he seemed to be jealous that I was still doing these things all these years later. And I told him, I said, well, hey, Mike, you could be a part of this every bit as much as Ray and Derek are. All you've got to do is apologize.
Do the right thing. Do the right thing.
All you got to do is say, hey, I'd like to be involved and I'm sorry. He could have come back. Steve could have come back. Steve was no longer that artist, right? When we had a chance to do some stuff in 2000 and then 2012 again, we had a chance to go to. When we went over for the Metal Assault Festival in 2012, I asked Ray. I said, you know where these guys are, right? And he goes, yeah, I know where Steve is. I can get a hold of him. And he got a hold of him. And because I actually got a letter from a company in California, in Los Angeles, with a $500 royalty check for Steve.
Wow.
That I had to give to Ray to give to Steve.
Wow.
Right? I haven't got a $5 royalty check in my entire fucking life.
So check this out. You get a $500 check. He didn't give you the $400 he borrowed to come up and be in the band back, did he?
No.
Yeah, of course.
Wow. But the point is, I knew that my publishing got screwed. I knew that I got screwed when the coup happened. They took away all my songwriting credits. They took away all my publishing credits. They didn't give me any credit for anything on the songs.
What the fuck?
Because, you know, and all these years later, when Steve is getting a $500 check and I've never got anything, I know that I got ripped off, right? So anyway,
so you've had no just to put the nail in the coffin there, you've had no contact with Steve because did he refuse to see you or what?
Steve became a recluse of sorts, right? I know where he lives in the general area, but I'm respecting his privacy. Everybody's been trying to find him for 20 years, and he's living the life he wants to live as a recluse in his own little community, and I'm going to respect that.
I will say, you know, we're not here to slag him. I mean, you have every right to slag him. I don't know him, so I have no right to slag him. The guy had a fucking amazing voice. I mean,
yeah.
Ever so slightly, maybe too much Jeff Tate, just a tiny little bit. Like he was right on that edge. I mean, he was very much not aping him, but he was very good at the Jeff Tate isms with his voice. But he had an amazing voice, and the music changed quite a bit from Graceful to One Small Voice, because I think on any given day you could toss them up and I'd say, well, this is my favorite this day and this is my favorite the next day. But I think that maybe the complexity of the song structures are a little more advanced harmonically with where to go? Here we go. With this album. They're more deeper. The tracks are more layered and dense, and they're bigger.
Well, yeah, we were maturing as musicians, right?
Yeah, right.
And you know, and in my idea of it is you have to write music that's going to feature the best capabilities of the vocalist.
Right.
So the songs we wrote with Paul were designed for Paul.
Sure.
The songs we wrote with Steve were designed for Steve. I mean, you have to suit your best foot forward, right? And to me, the vocalist is got to be the primary focal point.
Yeah,
that's the front man, right?
Sure.
So, you know, guitar wizardry. Those guys. I mean, there's 10,000 guys that can outplay me upside down and backwards.
Of course, and me too.
The distinction is being able to write songs.
Good songs. Yeah.
Right?
And these two albums have great songs on them, man. I mean, just, you know, I can off the top of my head just start hitting you with titles. You know them because you wrote them, but like Another Candle, what a fucking song, dude. The Servant, another killer track. Tear Down the Walls, God, another killer track. Keeper of the Rain. It's just a fucking banger of an album. And on any given day, this album might be a little better, actually, crazily. And it's a little different, though. It's not quite as made in the new wave of. It's more Queensryche Operation Mindcrime versus Warning, if you want to go there, kind of like, you know.
Yeah, and all those songs were written before Mindcrime. So it's
yeah, that's right.
You know, I mean, that's the thing that's kind of frustrating when we put out an album or we do some kind of a review, and people are comparing us to bands that I've never heard. People are saying, you know, oh yeah, they're like Fates Warning. It's like, I've never heard a Fates Warning album.
Really? You never honestly heard a Fates Warning album?
We played a gig with them in Kent in 1988 with Steve. but I've never heard one of their albums. Right?
No kidding.
I've just haven't. Right?
Yeah.
I just, and we were writing the songs that are on Graceful Inheritance that was released in '86. Those songs were written in '84.
Yeah.
Right? The songs that are on the songs that came out in '89 were written in '87.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just economic reasons that it took a couple of years to actually get it out there in both of those cases. So when I look at the trends in music and how these bands evolved, guys with labels had access to write things and get it out.
Yes.
We had to take a couple of years.
Yeah, you had to sit on stuff. So it almost sounds like it came out after the fact when in fact it was before. In many cases. Yeah.
People could hear some Fates Warning and go, oh yeah, Heir Apparent sounds a little bit like Fates Warning. It's like, well,
nah.
I don't know because I've never heard their album.
Well, I mean, Awaken the Guardian and Spectre Within were a little before. Like Spectre Within was 85, I believe, and their big one before John Arch left, and then they replaced him with Ray Alder, was Awaken the Guardian. That was 86 for sure. But I don't remember. I think, when did this come out? What month? April?
That was in January of '86.
So this actually does precede Awaken the Guardian, which is often thought of as Fates Warning's magnum opus. Now, they did have 2 albums out before that. They had their Maiden extension. And I get it, Terry. You said something there that I wanted to touch on a little bit. I don't bring up the Queensryche comparison because I'm trying to upset you or go, oh, you guys weren't original. It's nothing like that at all. It's just there's a grouping, and like you said, before metal became 5 million genres, subgenres, there was kind of like prog metal. There was prog, like I look at Rush as all your granddaddies. Rush is the band that spawned all these bands, Queensryche, Fates Warning, Dream Theater, every one of those bands. And I think all you guys would name check them and say, hey, those are kind of like the proto prog metal band was Rush.
We all grew up listening to Rush,
right?
Pink Floyd,
yes,
and then it was Priest, Maiden, and that's about it. And Black Sabbath with Dio,
sure,
right? And
right.
Rainbow, right?
And
so
Rainbow.
I can take the Dio era of Rainbow and Sabbath, Judas Priest, Unleashed in the East, the first Scorpions album.
Oh yeah.
And a couple others, and that all of us were inspired by that same handful of albums and handful of bands.
Maybe even a little bit of UFO too. Probably a little bit of UFO in there, probably. But yeah, I mean, so please don't take it like when I brought up Queensryche. It's just the obvious thing. Now, I will say that Paul had a more unique voice in terms of singularity. I think that Steve's voice was maybe a little better overall on the recordings, just on the recordings. I don't know live because I never got to see you guys live, but Steve definitely veered into the Jeff Tate territory much more than Paul ever did.
Yeah, and that was Steve's natural voice. I mean, he wasn't forcing it at all. He wasn't trying to copy anybody. That's just the way he sounded, and it was kind of the one thing that was, the one thing that was really cool about that is that, and I heard the same kind of comments about Jeff Tate, and I will never begrudge Queensryche anything. I mean, I'm an absolute fan of that band. Those guys, Steve and I went and met them one day and played softball with them over in Bellevue. And
really?
When they were, between tours and stuff, we went over and spent a Sunday with them. And I mean, we borrowed their gear for the first album. I borrowed Chris's acoustic guitar on the first album.
The Ovation? The Ovation? Was that the Ovation?
It was a 12-string. I borrowed Chris's 12-string. I think it was a Yamaha.
Okay.
12-string that I played on Keeper of the Rain and a couple of things in the studio. We borrowed one of their Marshall heads, one of the 412 cabinets.
Nice.
Ray borrowed a couple of Rockenfield's Simmons electronic drums for that album. So I mean, and Jim Rivers, their live tour sound man, was a co-engineer at the first half of the recording sessions for Graceful Inheritance. So
no kidding. Wow. Now let me ask you one other quick question, then we'll get to the final album here and see what's going on future. You already dropped one small little Easter egg there a little while back. We'll get to the final stuff because you got some gigs, I think, planned, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So one other question I had was one of my other favorite Seattle bands, and I mentioned them before, but I don't think you guys know each other really, is Fifth Angel, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know them personally, or have you met them at all, Ed or any of the guys, or Kenny?
I back in the day, we knew them, like we knew of them, right?
Competitors.
Well, yeah, but it was like, but they were, they were signed, they were off doing their own thing. They didn't play shows. So
they didn't. And Ed told me that, and that shocked me. They didn't play a show until 2018. I was like, what?
Yeah,
what?
They never played shows. So we didn't have a chance to hang out or do anything like that. I remember going to an album release party. I remember meeting up with Terry Date at the studio and having the guys there. Metal Church had an album release party we went to. Queensryche had an album release party.
Metal Church were Seattle too. I forgot.
Fifth Angel. So there was a lot of bands, and we were at the time. It did feel competitive. It felt like everybody had their secret connection, and they didn't want to share anything.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
So Fifth Angel had Epic, and we kind of got. Well, I mean, we had a chance with Kim and Diane early on with Queensryche before they got really busy, but it did seem to be like there was a competitive nature to the scene back then where people didn't really want to share.
Yeah. It kind of makes sense to a degree. You kind of understand it to a degree because, you're
competing with the whole world. Right.
Yeah, you're trying to get that contract. You're trying to get signed. You try to become the next big thing, and I get that. I fully understand that. I don't think anybody did it out of malevolence at all, but it was just kind of like you said. I got a secret. I got a contact that you don't have. I'm gonna hang on to it.
Yeah, and that's totally understandable.
Yeah.
But as far as my view of all the guys, right? I mean, I've been criticized for even talking to Ray and Derek over the last 30 years. I've been, but the way I look at it is, we were all kids at the time. I assume after 10, 20, 30 years, guys have grown up. They've experienced a few things. They've got some regrets. I know I do.
Yeah, sure.
So I never felt bad about taking the high road and bringing them back in. If you guys want to do this, here we are. We have an opportunity to do this. Do you want to be a part of it? I gave them the first right of refusal, right?
Yeah, that's amazing.
And
I don't know that I would have done that, to be very honest with you. If I was in your position, I'm a little bit more petty, so I probably would have been like, fuck that guy, man.
well, in my view,
I see where you're coming from.
In my view, if it wasn't for the fans, none of this would happen in the first place.
Very true.
And so if
they're asking for that, then why not try to make it happen?
Yeah, I want to give them as much of the original stuff as I can because that's what they want. That's what they want, right?
Yeah, that's big, very big of you, man.
And if Michael and Steve called me tomorrow and said, we want to go do a tribute show or a reunion show or whatever, yeah, let's do it.
Wow,
I would do it.
Wow,
because after all this time, I know the Europeans, they'd go batshit crazy to see Steve Benito sing that album.
They would
go absolutely ape shit for the opportunity to see him perform. And I've had dreams about it for 30 years.
I mean, you can see, I don't know if you're aware, maybe you aren't, but I brought up Crimson Glory a couple of times. They've reformed with a new vocalist, and it's three of the guys. It's Dana, Ben, and John Drenning is not a part of it. It's interesting because the John Drenning thing is kind of like the Steve Benito thing. They heard him they heard John Drenning play, shredding and shit in a surrounding studio practice rehearsal place. And they're like, we got to get this guy, man. We got whatever we got to do. We got to get this guy in. And he did write the lion's share of the music after that. I don't know. The 2 tracks they've released so far are pretty good. The singer's pretty good. You don't replace a guy like Midnight, man. You just don't do it. There's, as I would say, you've been very lucky. I think one of the issues, though, maybe that, and I don't know if you agree with this or not. Do you think? Well, okay, let's get into the current time, and then I'll throw this thought at you. But so you get through the whole the mess of them trying to steal the band from you. The band kind of goes dark. Everything with the band goes dark. You get into going to school and changing your life and doing some things to move forward. And then you get some information that, hey, there's an interest out here. What happens then?
Are you talking about 2000?
Yeah, we're talking around 2000, right? Because it was about a decade that things were dark, right?
Yeah. So
a little over 13 years, I think.
Yeah. So 1999, 2000 is when I got on the internet and we did the Hellion reissues, right? And then we go play Whackin', and I got a hold of Ray and Derek and said, hey man, we've been invited to do this. Do you want to be a part of it? They both said yeah. And I couldn't find Paul anywhere. I wanted to go back there with the original band, couldn't find Paul. And so Ray and Derek were in a grunge band in the 90s, and they knew Michael Flatters from Portland, and they brought him up, and so he performed with us at Whackin' and learned the songs, and we ended up doing one of the Dr. Unknown songs from their grunge band at the Whackin' show.
Okay.
Because I thought, what the hell, I'll play one of their tunes. What the hell? It was fun, right?
Right.
And so, and I wanted to continue being a band. The offer was there to record another album. There was label interest. There was show interest. People were interested in the band again. And so it's like Ray and Derek and Michael had an invitation to, hey man, let's write some stuff. Let's write another album. Let's be a band. And we got back and they decided they didn't want to do that. And then a couple of weeks later, I find out that Ray knew where Paul was the whole time. And Ray just simply didn't like Paul enough to include him. He didn't, it's like, he just like, it's like, no, I don't want to do this with Paul. So he had made that decision himself without letting me know.
Without telling you all know about it. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we could have gone over there with the original lineup potentially. I mean, as it turns out, we don't know that Paul would have been able to do it.
Okay.
Vocally, because when I did find out that he was around when I got back in 2002, he had an opportunity when I formed the band with a different bass player and a drummer. We auditioned with Paul for a while. We got to the point where we could get through about 8 or 10 songs, but Paul's voice never fully returned.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So
that happens. That shit happens, man.
Yeah. And so for the last 25 years, there's been interest from the European promoters to get Paul over there. He was supposed to go again in 2012, and so Derek and Ray and I are getting together again, and Paul's going to sing, and we're going to go over 2012 and do the Metal Assault Festival in Germany and all this stuff, and a couple shows in Greece. And come to find out that Paul couldn't get a passport because he was $5,000 in debt with back child support.
Oh,
okay. Dad, right?
Yeah.
So, and he has since got his life together and straightened out, and
good.
And he's doing great right now.
Great.
But at that particular period of time, it was
not a good time. Not a good time for him.
Yeah, not a good time for him to get over there. And so we found a last-minute replacement who went hoarse 10 days before we were supposed to jump on the plane. So again, Ray and Derek find another guy that was the singer for Dr. Unknown, Jeff Carroll, who did his absolute best. He worked his ass off to learn 15 songs in a week.
Wow. Shit.
And because the promoters didn't want us to cancel, they'd already advertised the gig, and it's Heir Apparent and Sanctuary playing the Metal Assault Festival, and so it's like, don't cancel, show up with whoever you can. And so we showed up, and I thought Jeff did a great job considering all the circumstances, but people didn't care about the circumstances. It's like, it's like he's got a great voice, but he didn't know all the lyrics. He had to have some lyric sheets on stage, and, because they didn't have a teleprompter, which would have been great, but it's just, we did the best we could under the circumstances.
Yeah, you're flying by the seat of your pants at this point. You're really struggling. Didn't know Peter Arulian sing for you a little bit, or no?
Yeah, he was with us from 2003 to 2006. We the first time we went over for Keep It True 7, Peter sang with us, and then he ended up doing a reunion with Fifth Angel.
He did Fifth Angel.
Yeah.
And now I think he's done something for Dream Theater. He did a big book.
I think he did a book with them. Yeah. But he was always a huge Dream Theater fan, so I'm not surprised at all that he did that. I guess he's had a great career at Microsoft. So but yeah, I mean, there has been opportunities from time to time with different lineups, with the lineup with Peter and Bobby on bass. I mean, there's been opportunities to be a band and write songs, but I could never get the guys to commit. They didn't want to rehearse enough. They didn't want to put in the time. They didn't want to do that. It's like you go to somebody and you say, hey, learn these 15 songs and get a free trip to Europe. And they go, yeah, I'm in.
Right.
And then you say, hey, by the way, do you want to do an album? No.
Too much work, too much commitment.
Too much work. Right.
Yeah.
So
I think too, but honestly, Terry, we're not young dudes anymore. We're not 20. And so there are, I do kind of get that. Like I have a lot of friends in various different bands and stuff like that. And I'm like looking at it thinking, man, at 60, would I really want to be cruising across Europe in a bus, a double-decker bus maybe, or whatever? Could I do that now? I'm not sure I personally could. Maybe that's a little bit of it, but it does sound like there's always been, maybe with Heir Apparent, there's been sort of, the singer thing has been one thing unto itself, but does seem like there's just sort of commitment issues.
Well, yeah, you have to want to do this, right?
Yeah.
And in most of the cases with different lineups of this band through the course of time, I've been the guy that's been the motivator, right?
Yep.
Trying to make things happen and go out there and do it, right? I've never been on a real tour, and I've always wanted to find out what that was like. I would have loved to have been on that Crimson Glory thing, right?
Yeah,
and and what would have followed? I mean, if the band hadn't pulled what they pulled at that particular point,
who knows what happens?
Who knows what happens? Exactly.
Yeah.
1992, I listened to Dream Theater's Images and Words album, and that album brings me to tears because I'm thinking to myself,
I could have written that.
I'm thinking to myself, 3, 4, 5 years of experience, where might I have been as a musician?
Yeah, that could have been you, and you could be the guy now doing the Budokan and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Petrucci, those guys, they're phenomenal musicians, right? There's no doubt about it. But I mean, just the idea that it's certainly not a matter of saying, well, we could have been them and they wouldn't be, but we could have been something, right?
Yeah, it's really a mind fuck in a lot of ways. How, just by the material on these two albums alone, because we haven't come to the last one here, we will shortly, but just on the material alone here, the songwriting, the performances, you guys are all extremely good musicians. Are you Petrucci? I don't know. I haven't seen you play live. I don't know, but
I'm not.
not many people are John Petrucci. Only John Petrucci's John Petrucci. So, but the point I'm trying to make is that it just seems like there was like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 5 steps forward, 2 steps back with your band, and it just seems like, I don't know, maybe it was just the chemistry of the guys and just the circumstances in the business. Obviously, you're getting the end of the 80s and the grunge thing comes in, and metal dies during the 90s pretty much anyways, except for Pantera. Pantera was the only band that really kept, and I would say Alice is a metal band. I don't really think of them as grunge. Soundgarden too has a lot of metal in them too, but that was a tough time for tons of bands,
Yeah.
You weren't the only ones, but it just seems like, yeah, you're right. 92, if you guys had done something on par with an Images or an Awake or something like that, it could have easily been you guys.
Well, and Fates Warning has had a good, they've had longevity, right?
They have.
It's like, so I feel like we had an opportunity, and things could have been a lot different, and we might have actually got to the point where music was a career, right? And that was never realized. It was always my dream to be able to say, wow, I'm a professional musician, and I never got there.
Yeah, you didn't get to make your living out of it.
And the difference between us and a band like Dream Theater is that, they are technical masters, right? But their show, they require a lot of lights and stuff to be the activity, because they're just standing still and playing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were not standing still and playing. We were running around. We were moving. No choreography, no cheesy choreography, but no statues either.
Right.
We played and we tried to be emotional and put it across, right? And so that was the difference, right? We wanted to put on a performance that was somewhat athletic, and at the same time,
musical.
Have the emotion and have the intensity, and then have the sweet little ballad stuff, but then totally kick ass at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Able to show that emotion and diversity. That was always the goal. And there's a couple videos where you can see glimpses of what could have been.
Yeah.
But it just didn't come to play. And now I'm old and I can't move like that anymore.
You and me both, man. I know exactly what you mean. Just getting up out of bed is painful some days. So I know that feeling. So, okay, so we get to 2012. There's opportunities. You have done a lot of European festivals. You've done Keep It True and some of these big sort of, I want to call it power metal, but it's not really power metal. It's just more like traditional European power metal, I guess, is the thing. And the reality, and you've already mentioned it, is that you are far more popular overseas than you are here, because the metal scene's different over there. They are dedicated. It's not trendy. It's not, guys like me and you, we're not only are we old, but we're old fucking school, man, because we don't walk away. Even when our band puts out a shitty album, I don't anyways. Rush has put out some, they put a couple of stinker albums out. I still love them, but I don't love them as much as the real good stuff, right? But I still am there. I went to see Rush 56 fucking times in my life. I'm a diehard, man. It just doesn't, this shit's in my veins. I've played on stages in cover bands, but I've never been at your level at all. But it's in me. It's in my DNA. And that's how we are. And that's how the Europeans are. That shit's life, right?
When they decide they love you when they're 14, 15, 16 years old in the mid 80s, it's forever.
Yeah.
And and that's the reason that this thing is still alive after all these years. I mean, these guys grew up, and some of them became promoters, and then they want to bring back their favorite bands from their youth, and somewhere along the line we happen to be on that list, so we get invited back. I mean, I think we were at Wacken in 2000. We went back in 2000, 2006, 2012. 2015,
wow,
16, 19, and then and so and
I mean, you're another one of those bands. Crimson Glory is like that. Vicious Rumors, you probably know Vicious Rumors. Jeff Thorpe. I mean, they do way better. I went to see them. They did a small little tour. Were they with Raven? I think it might have been them and Raven and some like US band that I bleach blonde dudes, and they were great. I mean, they were great, but they're honestly, Terry, there was probably 40 people in the audience, if that.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, would you really want to go out and play for 40 people a night in a club? Seriously?
I'll play anywhere, anytime. But yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying. In America, it's just a different world over here.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, we can. I can get 200 people to show up at a club in Seattle if there's a gig,
right?
But yeah,
would you get that in Kansas City or Baltimore or something? Probably not. Yeah.
7 people,
Yeah, maybe.
Nobody knows who we are in America.
Just be up front going, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
who's this nutty guy down there, right?
we are unknown here. I mean,
yeah.
And you have to go out of your way to even know we exist, because we never had a major label. We never had a manager. We never had an agent. We never toured. We never did anything. Right.
See, now I have a built-in excuse for why it took me 35 years.
Exactly. There's 5 million people just like you.
I know. That's the part that you're sitting there going, ugh, if only, that kind of thing. Well, so just so in the order of getting you out of here in the next 20 minutes or so, how about we touch base with 2012 and move forward to this album, which came out in 2018, The View from Below. Now, tell me a little bit about Will. Tell me a little bit about the interim period to getting to this point and getting the commitment to make this album. And if you wouldn't mind 1 second, you're going to see my white legs for a second. I got to stand up for one moment and shut my door. Give me 1 sec.
Sure.
Bird leg. Woo. Sorry, my door was open and my partner down there is screaming at me to shut the door. So, all right, go ahead.
So we, again, because of the interest in getting Paul to come back to Europe in 2016, Oliver at KIT wanted us to put the band together again and come over with Paul. Well, I knew Ray didn't want to have anything to do with Paul, so I had a different lineup. Some of the guys that had been with me earlier in the 2000s, Bobby Furkovich on bass, Clinton Clark on drums, and then Sakia on keyboards. We had a band going with Paul, and we were trying to get Paul ready to go to the show in 2016, because we already had an offer to go to Italy for the first time and play the Play It Loud festival in October of 2015.
Oh wow. Okay.
So we were going to do the Italy show in October 2015, play a couple local gigs, then go back to Europe in 2016,
right,
for Up the Hammers, and a show in Thessaloniki and Athens, and then do the Keep It True thing. And so we had these 3 or 4 shows lined up, and the goal was to get Paul ready. We couldn't get Paul ready. So he just couldn't get through the set. So at the last minute, I'm the promoter's basically saying, "Hey man, it's Paul or nothing." Right?
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but like these things come to me. Did you try detuning? Because clearly he couldn't he sang that shit in his 20s. He can't get there in his 50s.
Yeah, it's not a matter of the notes as
Oh.
much as it's just the endurance and being able to actually get through 3 or 4 songs without going hoarse.
That's a physical thing. Everybody, you forget when you play guitar, you can kind of be off a little bit, but when this is your instrument.
Yeah, when it's either there or it's not, right?
It's there, it's not. Yeah.
And so we tried, and that couldn't work. So I talked to Mike Gorham, who in 2013 was going to be the singer for the band from the East Coast, and it turns out he couldn't give it the time commitment either. So, but he referred me to Will. He said, check this guy out. He's on YouTube. He's a YouTube singer.
Okay. And
so I go to YouTube and I look up Will, and I see him doing I think it was a Dream Theater song and a Queensryche song. And I sent him a message saying, hey, this is Terry in a band called Heir Apparent. We have an opportunity to go to Italy and go to Germany and go to Greece next year. I think you can do this. Do you want to give it a shot? And he said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So I let Oliver know, and it's like, well, I've got this singer. Well, okay, but you can't be the only original guy. It's not Heir Apparent with just you.
Oh, okay.
Even though I had been over there already for Keep It True 7, which they called the Keepers of the Rain Festival. They billed it as the song title, right? So
that's cool. Yeah,
that was kind of cool. But yeah, I was the only original member in that lineup, but I didn't want to do that again, especially going with Ray and Derek in 2012. This is only a few years later. So it's like, okay, I retained Op as the keyboardist, and then got Ray and Derek involved with Will. It's like, okay, we'll get 3 original members and a keyboard player that I had played with for 10 years.
While, yeah.
By then, right? He'd been with me for 10 years by then. So it's like, okay, we'll do that. And so we get Will, we fly him in, do some rehearsal, play a local show, jump on a plane, fly to Italy, spend a week over in Brescia, which was fantastic.
Where at? In
Brescia, Italy.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
Just absolutely beautiful trip.
Cool.
Really, really, really a fun experience. And Will was still learning some of the songs. So, and I recorded everything, got video, and recorded the show. I try to record everything I can in case there's an opportunity to actually come up with a live thing that's releasable.
It works, yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
And so, for the most part, he did really well. I mean, he left out a few choruses and forgot some lyrics here and there, but he's new, right? It was new in the band, and it's like, okay, well, that's cool, it's workable, and he's a great singer, right?
He is. He really a lot of powerful voice.
Yeah. So we do the show in Italy, and then it's like, well, let's get ready for next year, And the dynamic of this band was that, Will's diabetic, so he's got problems he had some retinopathy issues where if he did too much singing and too forceful
pressure,
the pressure, his retinas would bleed and he could possibly go blind, right?
Ooh, yeah.
So he's got some health issues that way, which prohibited him from singing for a 6 or 8 month period of time. And this is a little later in the game, but in 2015, we do the Italy show. Then we go to 2016, and we've got Up the Hammers in Greece and a show in Thessaloniki. And then a month or so later, go back to Germany and play Kit. And all these shows came off really well. We were able to do 20, 23 song sets, play for a good strong 90 minutes, and really do pretty much everything from the first couple albums. and pull it off, And
Yeah, I watched. I think Keep It True is the outdoor one with the amphitheater, right? Sort of.
No, that's Headbanger.
Hard Rock.
That's Headbanger. Yeah, Hard Rock. Yeah, the Rock Hard Festival is the one that's in the amphitheater out by the river.
Yeah, Rock Hard's the one I watched, and that was
2019.
Yeah, it was 19, and he really did well on that, man. I mean, his material he does exceptionally well, but I think you do Keeper of the Rain on that one, right?
Yeah, and he did Crossing the Border in that video too.
Yeah, man, fucking killer. Really, really powerful voice. Very good energy on the stage too.
Yeah. The dynamic of this particular lineup was that, because he lived in Philadelphia, every time we wanted to do something, we'd have to fly him in.
Yeah. So
that cost $500 to bring him in to rehearse for a few days, or to bring him in to record for the album or whatever. So I would have to, I'd set up a gig that would pay us enough to cover his airfare.
Yeah.
And we'd bring him into town and rehearse a little bit, and then do a show to pay for the trip.
Right.
And so, but because of the logistics, and the health issues, there were some complications over the period of the 4 years. I mean, from 2015 to 2019, we do Keep It True in 2016, and we walk off that stage, and I met one of the Greek labels had a metal market at the festival, and I told him, I said, I'm not leaving here until you tell me you want to do an album. And he's laughing like, I can't do that. I can't afford you guys. I said, you might be surprised. So he says, well, get a hold of me when you get back home. We'll talk. Right. So get back home. I negotiate with them, and we sign a contract with No Remorse to do an album. Right. So, and I figured, I've got all the software, I've got all the equipment, I've spent a boatload of money on software and recording gear and everything.
Do you use Logic or Pro Tools, or what do you use?
I use Nuendo. Oh,
okay. Well, that's a new one to me.
It's like Cubase's big brother.
Oh, Cubase. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nuendo's what they use for all the movie production, post-production, movie soundtrack
stuff. Okay.
Right? So I've been using Nuendo for like 20 years. And so I've got that, and I know that I can record the album here. So I basically negotiate a deal so that we owe this guy an album. And then Ray had a back issue that prohibited us from doing some shows. Will's diabetic condition prohibited us from doing some shows. So between 2016, it's 2018 now, and we're supposed to go back and do shows in 2017. We had to cancel because of the health issues. 2018, we're supposed to go play Chicago at
what's that festival? The metal festival.
Yeah, the metal thing and festival. I forget.
Shit. Something in steel, Swords and Steel, or something like that. Yeah, I can't think of it off the top of my head. I know the one you're talking about, though.
Yeah, so we're booked for that, and we had to cancel. The Northwest Metal Fest guys, or Northwest Metal Works guys, do a metal festival in Seattle. We have to cancel. They do a second one. We have to cancel.
Damn.
We're invited to go to Spain, France, more shows in Germany. I have to cancel a dozen different opportunities because of the health of the guys in the band. And then they don't want to rehearse. They don't want to do local shows. So I'm writing songs and sharing stuff back and forth on tapes and stuff. The drummer and the bass player live an hour and a half away. The singer's in Philadelphia. We get together instrumentally once in a while on a random weekend, but essentially the album comes together by me sitting here at this desk that I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Writing stuff
constructing it, and then them phoning in parts from file sharing,
programming drums, and just writing songs, right? And then I'll send out tapes, and then Will would send me vocal tracks and vocal takes, and I would cut and splice things together, and we'd piece together these songs, right?
Right.
And so we created this demo, and it's like, okay, well, now it's time to record the album. You know, we got this deal negotiated in, you know, the summer of 2016, and here it is 2018. We owe this guy an album.
Yeah.
And so we basically set it up. We're going to do it. This is the date we're going to do it. We're going to fly Will in. He's going to be here for 10 days to record vocals. And so, okay, on this date, we're going to bring in drums, and we're going to record drums, you know, and get the drum tracks down.
Did you do that in a room or just there at your place?
Right here in this room.
No kidding. No shit.
So Ray's got his drum set up behind me, 5 feet from where I'm sitting right now, and I'm engineering everything. And so he's tracking drums. We've got an 8-song album. A couple of the songs don't have lyrics yet, but you know, and we haven't rehearsed, right? There's nobody has played these songs.
Yeah, you're not a full-time band. That's the reality.
Yeah. So Ray's playing drum parts for these songs and piecing things together. And okay, we've got enough for that song. Okay, well, here's this other song. Here's the click track. You know, here's the tempo. Here's the verse chorus thing. You know, so we're tracking drums for like 4 days. And he's got back problems. He's in pain. I mean, he's fighting his way through it. And, you know, I mean, he literally, he'd have to stop. You know, I mean, he'd play for a minute or two. Wow. I don't think I've got a drum track on the entire album that's more than a minute long.
Wow.
Where I had to, so basically I had 150 takes, and I'd have to piece together, okay, I can use this for a verse. I can use this for a bridge.
Everything, yeah.
I can use this for a chorus, right? So so I'm doing drum editing for a couple of weeks.
Wow. That's a lot of work too, by the way.
Yeah. So I'm piecing all the fundamental elements together so that we've got 8 songs of drum tracks that are ready for you know, all the pre-production is done, so that they're ready to go to Tom to start mixing. And then I have Derek come out for a couple of hours and jam through the songs, because he doesn't really know. I mean, he didn't really know what he wanted to play. The songs had not been actually written,
fully realized. Yeah, right.
So he's jamming 3 or 4 takes through every song, and it's like, okay, take off. I'll piece things together, right? So a piece of things together. You know, in the old days, we rehearsed. We'd go through the set 3 times a day.
Yeah, so this is like the complete opposite of that.
We lived in the same house. We rehearsed every damn day, right?
Yeah,
we were tight. We could, you know, we could play with the lights off, and you know.
Yep.
So this is totally different, totally foreign to anything that I've ever been used to.
Yeah.
Bring it up to lay down his keyboard tracks. Okay, take off, and I'll, you know, because I had already written, because of the nature of how we put these songs together, I'd already written half the keyboard parts for most of the songs. I'd programmed on, you know,
just on MIDI,
I
MIDI.
drew them out in MIDI. I've got a keyboard. I've got a keyboard here, and I could just
the controller and yep.
right out, right. So the only songs that were played from beginning to the end are the guitar parts.
Because you are right, and then you're playing them.
I had to sit here and, you know, hit record and then play through the tune. Well, so, and I wanted a big heavy sound, because I've been using those Johnson modeling amps for 25 years.
Yeah.
So I went through each song 3 times with a Marshall patch, a rectifier patch, and a Soldano patch. So I had 4 mics, 4 different microphones on a 412.
So you were actually using amp sims then. You weren't actually recording.
I was using the Johnson Millennium amplifiers, which has it's got tube preamp section and then a digital effects section.
Right. So you can send a modeler sim in there then of.
Well, no, it was, we were miking up a 412 cabinet.
Okay. But you said you had a Marshall and a Soldano. How'd you get those?
It's an amp modeling amp.
Yeah, modeling amp. Okay, I got you.
But it uses tube preamps.
I got you. Yep.
So it emulates these other amplifier tones, but it's still using tubes to do it.
I got you now. Yeah, I was confused for a second.
So I played through each song with 3 different amp styles, right? So everything you hear on there is triple tracked, and then the solos are just me with my standard live stereo sound with a little bit of reverb and chorus and a little bit of echo.
Right.
So I went through each song, the rhythm tracks 3 times with different sounds. And so I've got 18 faders of guitars, right?
Yeah.
Here's the Marshall blend, and here's the Soldano blend, and here's the dual rectifier blend. And then here's the 2-track solo.
Wow.
In stereo. But anyway, so I pieced all this stuff together and then played my acoustic parts on a couple of songs, tracked all that stuff. Then we bring Will in, send everything to Tom. And then Tom does some rough mixes and stuff. And then we bring Will in for 10 days to sing his vocals.
To track then, yeah.
Right.
I got to tell you, hearing this story about how you're putting this together, it doesn't sound like that kind of an album.
Yeah. And that's
shocking.
That's the beauty of it, is that I literally spent 800 hours on this.
I was going to say, you had to spend an insane amount of time doing that. I would imagine if there's ever a new album, you don't want to go through that again, though.
I would prefer not to. Yeah. But I was literally in here 20 hours a day for weeks. Man. But I was obsessed to get it right.
You wanted to get it right and get it done. Yeah.
As it turns out, I absolutely love this album. I think it's the greatest fucking thing I've ever done. But it's
fuller and lusher because of the production that you went into it, the engineering that went into it.
Well, and then Tom did a phenomenal job mixing the whole thing too. So, but back to Will coming in to record, he shows up and he didn't even bring lyric sheets. It's like, dude, you're here to track the album. Do you have lyric sheets? No. Oh, well, maybe we should print some of those up. He shows up and he's not singing like he sang on the demos.
Uh-oh.
Like, dude, here's the demo. We like what you did here. Do this.
Yeah.
So it takes a little bit of coaching. It's his first experience in this kind of an atmosphere.
Sure. Yeah.
And so he's at Tom's house tracking the vocals. And so we go through this and he's tracking a line at a time. And we're used to, putting a mic in front of Steve Benito and just say go. And at 4 minutes later, the song's done.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this album is literally one line. Okay, next line. 3 or 4 takes of each line.
Wow.
Pick the best take of each line, stitch it all together.
How about that, man? There's a lot of cut and pasting on this one, but it really doesn't sound that way. Because some albums you can kind of tell when that's going on. Maybe not unless you're a sound engineer and you know the band really well and you know the songs, then you know. But I mean, I don't really hear that in here. To hear how much work went into kind of putting this together as singular, as opposed to, like you said, rehearsed pieces where everybody knows you might do a little nuance this way. You might bend that note a little differently on that take or whatever. Yeah. You might sing a little bit differently. The vibrato might be a little bit different. I don't really hear that on this. I'm kind of stunned by that, to be honest with you.
Well,
well done.
The cool thing about Will's voice on these things is that you can tell when he goes into a phrase. I mean, he was doing the entire line, right? There might be 7, 8, 10 words or whatever. He would do the entire line, but when he goes into some of those screams,
right,
it's a continuous. I mean, when he holds those notes for 30 seconds,
Wow.
It's fucking real, right?
Yeah. Now he has a much raspier high end than the other two guys. Like
Yeah.
Steve was super smooth, man. Like he was mega smooth. Paul had a little bit of a different edge. That it was more, I would say, more like a Bon Scotty sort of high end, where it wasn't raspy, but it just had that growl to it with Paul's. But Will's got a rasp at the end when he goes high, especially on the live stuff. He can really get the fuck up there, man.
Oh, he's phenomenally talented. I mean, and I told him early on. I said, we're old, right? We're gonna maybe do this and get what we can out of it for a few years, but this is your launching pad opportunity.
How old is he? Much younger?
Well, he was 33 at the time.
Oh wow! Oh, so he's only in his early 40s now. Then,
at the most, he's probably still late 30s.
Holy mackerel! Holy crap!
I think he was 33 in 2015, 2016. So,
oh yeah, young dude.
So yeah, he might be 40 now. I mean, I guess, but yeah, it was like this was. I looked at this whole thing as a launching pad for him to go on to bigger and better things.
Sure.
Because I just didn't imagine that we'd be doing this for years and years and years, right?
Right. Do you so you played 19 was the show I saw. Did you play anything in 22, 23, 24?
No, the band broke up a couple of weeks after we got home from Headbangers Open Air.
I need to write a book about you guys. I don't know if anybody's buying, but I need to write a book about you guys. The story is awesome.
Well,
in a terrible way. Well,
here's some backstory. We get off the stage in 2016 at Keep It True. We played right before Fate's Warning. They headlined that second night. We were
okay. I remember that when they did the whole.
They ended up doing a live DVD of that show.
They did the Awaken the Guardian, the whole thing. Yeah. With John Hart.
We played just before them that night, and that went really well. So we walk off stage, and it's like what? April of 2016. We walk off stage. The five of us are not in the same room together until one of the mixes in 2018, when we got together on a Friday afternoon, all five of us were there to listen to Tom do some playback of one of the early mixes, and then we went and took some photographs. Ray's daughter came and took some pictures of us that we used on the album cover.
Okay.
So 2 years, literally more than 2 years had gone by before the five of us were even in the same room, and we'd recorded an album without being in the same room together.
That's
okay.
Nice.
So we get together, we film, we take some pictures for the album. Will flies home. I set up an album release party for September, October, a couple of weeks before the album came out. So we fly Will in for that. So we're in the same room together at an album release thing with a couple hundred friends to play the album and just, have a few beers and celebrate. Sure. But we didn't perform. So then Will flies back home, and meanwhile, we're booked for the Rock Hard Festival in June of 2019, and we're booked for the Headbangers Open Air Festival in July of 2019.
Okay.
And we're and we're the Saturday night headliner at the Headbangers Open Air. Queensryche headlines Thursday night. Sanctuary headlines Friday night. Heir Apparent headlines Saturday night and closes the festival.
Damn, man. No way. I don't remember hearing about this. That's crazy. Okay.
So that's our schedule, right? We've got these two big festivals coming up in 2019. So I can't get these guys to get together. They don't want to play a local show. They don't want to do anything to warm up. We fly Will in on a Friday, the weekend before Keep It True, to play these songs for the first time as a
The
band.
new ones.
The new album. We had a 23 song set.
Jeez.
The Rock Hard Festival is only giving us an hour, so we only play like 12 songs. But
Okay.
we played 3 or 4 songs off the new album. But we had to prepare for everything because the day after Rock Hard, we got a gig in Netherlands, and then the day after Headbangers Open Air, we had another gig in Netherlands a month and a half later. Right. So, and those are the whole set. We're playing all 23 songs.
Okay.
So we go to Rock Hard, we play 12 songs. But my point is, there was a couple of years before that we were even in the same room together after walking off stage at KIT. And that's only for a photo session. A couple months later, we're in the same room again for an album release party. 6 months later, the first week of July or June, we get together for a weekend to rehearse for 2 days, playing the View from Below songs for the very first time as a band.
Jeez, man.
3 days later, we're jumping on a plane to go play in front of 7,000 people.
You like to live dangerously, Terry. I'm telling you, man.
I don't like to live dangerously.
You don't like it, but the rest of the guys do, apparently.
Well, the other guys were, they're just committed enough to be there.
Yeah. Right? Well, I mean, I see your frustration. I hear it. I hear what you're saying.
And the album cost twice what the record company paid us to make it.
Okay.
Right? So my wife and I are taking several $1,000s out of our own pocket to pay Tom for mixing. I'm investing a couple $1,000s in T-shirts to sell at gigs.
Yep.
We're trying to sell albums at gigs, trying to sell everything we can merchandise-wise to recoup the money.
Just recoup what you put into it. Yeah.
Just to recoup what we put into it, right?
So what you're saying is this is a serious labor of love for you, but it is a struggle sometimes.
It's a struggle because we fell about 4 shows shy of breaking even.
Because of all the weirdness with the health stuff. And you know what you need to do, Terry? You need to hire all young kids in their like 19, 20, and 21.
Yeah.
Pay them virtually nothing. Promise that they're going to get to see chicks and cocaine and no, I'm just kidding about that part, kids. I'm kidding about that part. But it might work with the young dudes. But you got these old cats, man, where,
yeah. So
we're all falling apart.
So there's more to the story. So as far as the bad news stuff goes, but it'll explain what happens at the end. So we get together. It's June 1st, the week before we play the Rock Hard Festival. The first time that we're preparing to actually see if we can play the songs on this album, physically play them.
Right.
And we found out we could. Hey, it's like, shit. Everybody knows their parts. They've studied. Everybody plays. We play the songs. It's like, holy shit, this sounds good, right? Well, before we ever went upstairs, we're sitting in the backyard. Ray goes, hey, you need to call the promoter in Greece and renegotiate. We deserve $20,000 a show. And I said, you're out of your fucking mind.
Yeah, that's insane, man.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Number one, the agreement that I negotiated with him back in 2016 for the 2017 appearance that we had to cancel, that he graciously offered 2018 and we had to cancel, that he offered 2019 and we had to cancel.
Yeah.
Now is set for 2020. And it's going to be an all expense paid trip. He's covering airfare. He's covering room and hotel and everything. Yes, we're not going to make any money, but we're not going to spend any. Right.
And you get your merch.
Yeah, we get to sell some merchandise, and the airfare, which is, you know, $5, $6, $7 grand.
Oh
is
yeah,
covered,
easily.
right?
Yeah.
So they're covering the airfare, they're covering hotel, they're covering transportation. That's the deal. That's always been the deal.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call him and demand $20,000.
Especially after you canceled 3 years in a row.
Yeah, and you don't even want to practice.
Yeah.
I can't get you off your ass to rehearse, and now you're telling me that I need to go renegotiate the contract and ask for $20,000. Are you out of your fucking mind?
Yeah, that's insane, man.
You know,
that's
this is my friend.
yeah,
right?
yeah.
This promoter has gone out of his way to extend this offer for 4 fucking years.
Yeah, that's unheard of in a lot of
Right?
ways. He's doing that based on probably your relationship with him.
Yeah. And you know, so it's like you got a lot of fucking gall demanding that we're worth $20,000, and I can't get you off your ass to even fucking practice.
Yeah, that's nuts, dude.
Right?
That's crazy.
So,
even if you were the headliner on Saturday night, that's still, you know, that's a lot of money. I don't know.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's just fucking crazy. Right?
I don't know many bands that would get remotely that, you know.
And I don't know where he got that number in his head, but he said it. And I was just floored. It was like, you know, and I knew right then, it's like, okay, shit's going to have to fucking change.
Yeah.
So it's the beginning of June. We're rehearsing this weekend. We're jumping on a plane 3 days later to go to Germany. We go and we do that trip. I set up I hustle another gig in Netherlands the next day that we do get paid for.
Mm-hmm.
So I can recoup some of the money, right, that I've invested to pay for the album.
Right.
I had to set up these side shows because that extra $1,500, $2,000 or whatever ends up recouping some of the money that I've spent. You know, we spent $11,000 on that fucking
out of your own pocket. Yeah.
Right? So anyway, we do the shows, and then we get back home, and it's like, okay, it's like 6 fucking weeks before we're jumping on the plane again. Come on, guys, can we do a local show? There's people here who do want to see us play. There's people here. I mean, the album has been out for a fucking year, and we haven't played a show in our fucking hometown.
Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah.
I can't get them to fucking even want to do a show. So we don't do a show locally. We don't even fucking rehearse. We jump on a plane at the end in the end of July to fly to Germany to go play Headbangers Open Air, and we haven't even fucking rehearsed since we walked off stage in Germany in June.
Yeah.
So we go up there, we play 23 songs. It's all on video. It's all on YouTube.
Yep.
I think 19 songs, 19 or 20 songs are on YouTube.
I've seen a couple. I haven't seen the whole performance, but
so that whole thing's there. And it turned out good enough to post and not, you know, I mean, it's not too embarrassing.
Not a train wreck, right?
But it's like, you know, what the fuck? You know, I just once I want to do this right.
Yeah.
You know? So, and the next night we drive 6 or 7 hours to go play a gig in Netherlands. And in this, you know, at the Little Devil.
Right.
And then we don't get any sleep because we have to drive 6 hours back to Frankfurt to fly home.
Right.
So it's just a fucking whirlwind, right?
Yeah.
But the second gig, the gig in Netherlands was better because we played the night before. And it's like, hell, the second night, yeah, things are, you know, I mean, imagine what it would be like to actually play 5 shows in a row.
Yeah,
you know?
right. Yeah, you start to really cook. Yeah.
You start getting on a groove, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so, but we never had that chance. You know, all we've ever done are these little 1-off and 2-off things, right? So anyway, so I know things have to change. I can't get the guys to rehearse.
What year are we at here? Is this 20 or 20?
2019.
2019. Okay.
2019. And we're back home. It's August of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
We are booked for Up the Hammers Festival in February in Greece with another show in Thessaloniki. And then and then Kit again, right?
Right.
2020, we've got, and we're finally ready to, it's like I'm assuming at that point Will had his health issues taken care of to the point where he wasn't in dire need of blowing his retinas out.
Right.
So we had opportunities, but I knew that Ray and Derek were a problem. They didn't want to rehearse, and Ray primarily, but we did everything on Ray's schedule, and Ray and Derek are like joined at the hip.
Okay.
So I wake up one day and I'm thinking, okay, I got to change this. We need to figure something out, because I am not going to sit here for 7 more months before I see these guys again. I don't want them deciding to show up a week before we jump on a plane in February to go to Greece.
Yeah.
Fuck that. I need guys who want to play.
Yep.
Right? If I'm going to sit here and not have a band that functions until we play Greece,
you might as well just be a solo guy and just pull in
I
pro
might, I might as well contact the guys in Greece and Germany.
Say, get me some musicians
who already want to be bass players and drummers in Heir Apparent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they're out there.
Get me good dudes that know the parts, and I'll come in a few days early and we'll jam and boom.
I already know guys who've wanted to do that.
I'm sure.
Years, right?
Yeah.
So I get on Facebook in the morning before I go to work, and I send Will a message saying, hey, Will, the fucking black cloud is not fucking going away with Ray and Derek. I got to replace them. Our best opportunity to do something, if we're not going to be a fucking real band and not going to rehearse, I've got bass players and drummers in Germany and Greece that want to learn this stuff, and they'll be ready, and I trust them, and we can go there and rehearse and do these shows and actually possibly finally make the money that I need to recoup the album.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So I said, let me know what you think. I've got guys in Greece and Germany who want to do this. I just need to know if you're on board. Right? I get home from work and Jenny says, oh, you better read Facebook. We'll quit the band. So
see, I didn't know some of this stuff. So it's like,
nobody did. Nobody did, because I haven't said anything. I haven't said anything for 6 fucking years.
Yeah.
Or 5 years. So that's what happened. I sent Will a text message saying, listen, if this thing's going to be financially feasible, I know you want to start a family, right? We've got a guarantee of X amount of dollars to go perform these shows. If we don't have to fly a couple extra people over there, there's a couple $1,000s of headroom.
Saved.
Built right in to recoup some of these expenses. What do you think? Well,
I quit.
Ray and Derek are my buddies, whatever it is.
And this is before Ray and Derek, you talked to them, I assume.
Will posted that he has left Heir Apparent, didn't say why. He blocked my phone. He unfriended me. I get home from work and it's like, oh, okay.
Guess my band is broken up. I can bring anybody I want in now.
Yeah. So and I have no idea what Will has been up to since. I wish him the best.
So no contact at all, huh?
Oh, he fucking, I've been excommunicated from his life.
Well, then what about Derek and Ray? What's going on there?
Well, Derek and Ray, they 86 themselves, right?
Okay.
By the attitude and not wanting to rehearse and demanding $20,000 a show and all that kind of stuff. So that took care of itself, and so now.
You got new guys in the band, right?
Now it brings us to 2025, where Oliver once again at Kit has said, hey, we want Paul to come. He's been trying to get him there for 25 years.
Yeah.
Right? Can Paul do it? Can Paul do it? And Paul's had a standing offer for years. So I'm talking to Paul, 8-9 months ago. Yeah, man, I can do it. I want to do it. I want to do it. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. Okay, great. So get a drummer. We get a drummer. I get a hold of Dwayne Bakke, who filled in for Derek when he split for Savage Grace.
Okay.
Dwayne's enthusiastic. He's retired, so he can rehearse every day, all day.
Oh, nice.
I'm 65 now. I can rehearse. I'm not retired yet, but I can rehearse every evening and all weekends, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and the drummer that we brought on board ran the Seattle Drum School for 40 years, seasoned professional drummer.
Steve, is that Steve?
Yeah, Steve. Not really a metal guy.
Not the Steve Smith from Journey, though, right?
Not the Steve Smith from Journey, but
we should say that.
But yeah, he's a really well-known, well-respected drummer, and he's got a hell of a pedigree. Now, the news is that he's no longer in the band because of health issues.
Oh man!
And just he's 67. He's older than all of us.
Oh wow, yeah, that's drumming at 67. Different deal.
So after 8 months of being extra patient, it just we weren't making enough progress at 1 day a week.
Yeah.
And 2 days a week seemed to be impossible, and it just wasn't coming together, right? I had to either cancel everything or try something new. So we're trying something new, and also the realization that Paul's not going to be able to sing the entire set.
Oh man!
As much as we want to, they've advertised Paul as featuring Paul Davidson of Graceful Inheritance, right? Well,
right.
It's the 40th anniversary celebration of that album. And
this is coming up in 25, right?
Yeah, this is coming up in 25.
Right.
So they announced this show at this year's event in April. They announced next year's lineup, right?
Sure.
With a few of the bands. They didn't have a headliner announced for the second night yet, but they announced a few of the bands, and we were one of them. That show sold out like in a day and a half. So there's obviously huge interest in seeing Paul back on stage again, because he hasn't been over there since 1986. And, we have done everything we can to get him up to speed on things in the last 8 months, 9 months, 10 months. And he's known about this for quite a while. And it's proven that we can't count on him getting through more than a few songs. So we've got Harry Conklin that's going to sing for us most of the show.
Now, I know that name. Where have I heard that name before?
Well, he's been in a handful of bands, Jag Panzer for one.
Yeah, that's where I know it from. Yeah.
And they're currently on a little mini tour right now. But he has graciously offered to step in and save our ass, basically, so that we can pull these shows off. And so the plan is now, and I'm here I am talking about this publicly for the first time. The plan is to basically do the show with Harry and bring out Paul as a special feature
for a few songs.
For whatever Paul can manage to do.
The songs he can do well enough to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we don't want it to be a letdown for sure.
Yeah, and he doesn't want that either, I'm sure.
Yeah. So we have to set this up so that it doesn't come off corny. It's got to be done right, so that it's he gets to come out and do Keeper of the Rain or something like that, and have that be an event in and of itself.
Maybe do the encore, maybe 2 tracks for the encore, the biggies or something like that.
Yeah, and maybe share some duties with Harry, him and back and forth or something.
How old's Paul? Is he a little younger than you?
Yeah, he's like 63.
Yeah. I mean, dude, it's tough, man. I mean, you know, even the greats, I mean, how many dudes can you think of? Like even Halford has on and off days now, I'm noticing. He's still pretty much on for 73. It's pretty amazing. But, you know, I can think of like Bruce is still close most of the time. But like the only guy I can think of that can still fucking destroy is Glenn Hughes. That guy is like timeless, right? But the rest of these guys, even Geddy, man, Geddy by the end there he was changing pitches and moving things around, and not horribly so, but you know, it's just that unfortunate thing. Father Time is unfucking defeated.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So, you know, this experience, as you know, as ideal as it was promised to be,
Started out as,
it's not going to quite be that, but I know Harry's going to be phenomenal.
When's the show?
It's the end of April in 2025.
Okay.
And then we are immediately going to Greece after that for a few shows. We play a festival in Trikala, and then we're going to play a show in Athens and Thessaloniki.
Now you playing the same? I think Crimson Glory's on that, aren't they?
I
thought they were.
I don't know. I think they've got a few other things. But Travis, you know, you mentioned Crimson Glory.
Travis, yeah.
Travis auditioned for us a couple years back.
Okay.
So yeah, it's nice to see him in Crimson Glory getting a chance to go out there and do some stuff.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
It's tough finding vocal, you know, the reality of it is though too, Terry, your band has a distinctive sound. And if you brought a guy in, like say Lane I'm just throwing a name out. You can't bring Lane in because he's dead, but say you brought a more like deeper, growlier, whatever kind of guy, it's not going to work. It's just not the same thing. You know what I mean? You need a guy that has those pipes, and you know, you're almost gonna. So you are, in a weird way, I guess you're kind of looking for a long-term singer, maybe, or no?
Oh yeah, if I can find one, yeah. I mean, this band can't exist without a great singer, because
exactly.
You got to be able to copy Paul. You have to be able to copy Steve, not necessarily copy, but I mean, you got to pull it off, right?
Got to be able to come close. Yeah.
And Will was able to pull it off. He
was.
He could pull off the first 2 albums and then still do his own thing, right?
Wow, it's so weird that just happened, unless he just had personal conflicts of some sort in his head. I don't know.
Well, you know, I'm an asshole because I want to practice. You know,
that's bizarre. That's truly bizarre, man. That's weird.
You know, I want to do it right. You know, and you know, it's like if we're gonna do this, let's do it right.
Not half-ass it.
I mean, you know, the people, the promoters don't deserve a half-ass show. The fans don't deserve a half-ass show. It's, you know, I would rather walk away than do it half-assed.
Yeah. I don't blame you. I mean, that's the honorable thing to do. But I sense in you still there's a lot of fire to create and play. And I guess I was going to ask whether there was an album, but I didn't realize that Will had left. So that's kind of off the table for right now, I would assume.
Yeah. Well, if I mean,
the singer,
if Will was still around, we'd have been productive the last 4 years, right? Yeah. There would have been albums released during COVID, just because I know how to make them by myself.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, right.
But I mean, it's like, you know, yeah. So, you know, I'm 65 now. I could retire anytime. I could work for 10 more years, or I could retire.
Do you still play every day, or do you still play regularly?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I still play every day because we're rehearsing all the time now.
Okay.
You know, I've got Dwayne on bass. We've got Harry preparing to sing. He lives in Greece.
Oh, okay.
So he's already over there. He married a Greek woman, so he's living over there now, and um, we've got we've just finished auditions with a 22-year-old drummer.
Okay.
Who is bringing the energy. So
That might be cool.
Oh God, it's
Fire you up, right?
It feels so good. I mean, it's just, there's nothing like having the power back, right?
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. Opeth, I just saw them twice in New York and DC back about a month ago, about 6 weeks ago. And I've seen that band. Well, this was my 15th and 16th time seeing them, going all the way back to 2000. And the point I'm making is that the new drummer, Valtteri, just, man, I've seen them a lot going back to the early days, to Deliverance, 2000. And they're firier right now. They're I can't say the word, firier right now than I think I've ever seen them play. I was stunned. And I got to think, Frederick, who's a fucking sick guitar player. Do you know Frederick Åkesson? Oh, my God.
I don't.
He's the lead guitar player for Opeth. Insanely good. He was saying in a recent interview that Valtteri is the reason that he thinks the band is just firing on all cylinders right now, that they haven't been this intense before. And he said, I think it's all because of Walt. He said, because, sometimes I think to some degree, some musicians kind of reach a point where it's like, well, this is a job. It's a paycheck. I'm just going to phone it in today because I'm sick or I'm not into it right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing that I think you have to, if you get a really good, like you said, a good drummer like that, that can really fire the creative juices up, right?
Yeah, it's just the entire chemistry of everything that we've done for 8 months changed overnight.
Is he a local guy or?
Yeah, he's a local kid. He lives about 90 miles away, so it takes about an hour and a half to get here for him.
Wow.
He lives up in Bellingham, which is up near the Canadian border.
Right.
But he's 22 years old and he's full of energy and he's enthusiastic and he's energetic and he's just the nicest kid.
How'd you find out about him?
Through
the internet again?
No, it was a referral from a friend of mine who's basically a legendary jazz blues guitarist, slide player that I've known for years and years and years. The drummer in his band referred me to this kid. And I call him a kid because, well, I'm 65 and he's 22.
I was going to say, he is a kid. I do that all the time when I talk to 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds now. I'm like, hey, I hate to call you a kid, but I have a kid that's older than you.
Yeah.
My oldest kid's almost 30 now. So it's like, what the fuck, man? Like, even my kids aren't kids to me anymore. They're almost full-fledged adults. But 20-somethings, I'm like, dude, you're wet behind the ears. Trust me. Just trust the old man here. You start being your old man. But
so it's been
cool.
a huge change. And so do
you have any? You said you do play. You're playing regularly now because you're rehearsing. But like, when in between those times where things were stagnant with the band, do you pick up an acoustic and write? And I mean, do you regularly write riffs, or how's that work for you?
For 4 or 5 years, until this year, I really didn't have much of a reason to pick up my guitar for about 4 years. Now I would still do it, and once in a while I'll sit there and you can go back through my Facebook timeline and see me plinking on a guitar, sitting on the couch, doing something for a minute here and there.
I mean, that's what I meant, because like I play every day. Generally, my acoustic, I got a great Taylor that I love playing. Yeah. And I'll sit down, and a lot of times I'll be like, all right, dude, you played that riff like 8,000 times now. Come up with something different. And then I'll just suddenly been working a lot on finger picking the last 2 or 3 years, like getting really, I think, pretty good at it. and that's added a different dimension to my playing that I didn't really know was there before, when I was all just down picking and that kind of stuff. I guess that's what I was getting at. So you don't have a reserve of a lot of material sitting around on hard drives, or?
Oh, I've got ideas going back 30 years on tape and hard drive.
Yeah. Okay.
And I've got a ton of stuff. But what I really like is I can just pick up my guitar and improvise something, and it's like, oh shit, there's a song.
Mm-hmm.
It's the ideas are there.
Okay. Yeah.
The melodies are there. The things are there, and I don't have to think too much about it, which is kind of refreshing, right? Because I can just relax and just pick it up and go.
Is Oz still involved, or no? Or would that be like a thing you'd pull him in if you started writing and recording?
I don't know. I mean, we haven't really spoken in 5 years.
Really? Wow.
And it's just, he's got his family and his career, and I mean, everybody's got their families and their careers, right?
Sure.
So
that's the struggle, Terry, with having a band that's a business like a Dream Theater or like a Metallica. You may not even, I imagine those bands that have gone that long, they have to like one another to some extent, because they gotta, if you know what I mean, there's so much riding on it financially. You got to deal with it.
Yeah, and they're supporting 100 people.
Right. They've got a business that's supporting families and everything. So you almost, even if there is bullshit, you got to kind of, it just seems like, unfortunately for you, none of the guys had like the dedication past that early point with the first 2 albums to ever make it real beyond that,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess at some point they tried, once they pushed me aside, they tried for a while.
Oh, that's true.
But
yeah.
But ultimately, I guess I've always kind of, it's probably ego, but I've always felt a little bit vindicated that, they couldn't fly the plane. They pushed me out. They pushed me out, and they couldn't fly the fucking plane.
Yeah.
Because
well, it always takes, in a band, it always takes 1 or 2 guys that have to be the guy that flies the plane, because otherwise it's never going to go anywhere. Yeah. So,
I don't know what's going to happen from this point forward. I am open to being a real band. I am open to write and record. I will have an abundant amount of time to do that, because I can retire at the drop of a hat. If I feel like it, right?
Yeah, right. Sure.
And so, I mean, I've been responsible enough to be ready to retire if the opportunity's there for me to concentrate on music. I can do that, right? The whole thing comes down to having a great singer.
Yeah.
Now I've seen video of Harry recently performing in the last year or two, and he's fucking sounds great. I think him singing Graceful Inheritance material is going to be a piece of cake for him. He's very good at emulating other singers. I've heard him do Dio covers and Metal Church covers and Manowar covers, and he's got the range, he's got the pipes, and as far as I can tell, it's gonna kick ass. He's got a great reputation, and he's an active professional vocalist.
Right.
So,
it's a real deal for him.
Yeah, and I feel, so I feel really, I'm very grateful that he's in. And
how'd you get hooked up with him? Or did you reach out to him?
The Greek promoter knows him.
Okay.
So the Greek promoter actually brought it up when I said, "Hey man, I'm sorry, but Paul might not be able to do the whole show." And he goes, "Well, do you want me to find you somebody?" It's like, yeah, if you can.
Right.
So Harry Conklin singing for Heir Apparent. People in Europe know him. So when that word gets out now,
there you go. Exclusive right here.
That's going to be I think that's gonna, you know, that's gonna make some people thrilled.
Move the needle, yeah.
So, you know, we'll see what happens, but you know, I just want to do this right once. You know, I want to be rehearsed enough to go out and put on the kind of show that I've always wanted to put on. You know, I didn't have a chance to do it 30 years ago. I'm not going to have many more chances to do it. I want to fucking do it right. And
I hope for you, man. I really do, Terry. I mean, look, I don't know all the intricacies. I'm not going to get into the politics of everything because I don't know your relationships with all these guys, but it sounds to me like you've always been the guy that's trying to move Heir Apparent forward, and a lot of guys have just been dragging along, and they've been kind of dragging their feet and keeping the band from maybe moving in an upward trajectory. And that's a shame because, you know, all three albums are very good. I think, you know, in all honesty, these are two classic albums from the era. And then we flash forward, what, 30 years? Was it 30 years? No.
Yeah,
30 years. Yeah. And you put out another really quality album. And now I haven't spent as much time with that one because I got that one in the last, and I haven't had enough time to like fully digest every song to pick it apart. But it sounds like, you know, that despite kind of getting fucked raw quite a bit, you still have that fire, and you want it, like you said, you want to do it right. You want to have a group of guys that have the same fire that you do to really put the time in to make the thing perfect, or as close to perfect as you can be. And then even if it doesn't manifest into a giant US thing, but I will tell you, did you have any interactions at all with Hell's Heroes?
no idea what it is.
I will put Mr. Larson in touch with you maybe for 25. Maybe that would be too soon. That's a March. Not March 25. I'm sorry, March 26. Hell's Heroes is the traditional metal festival down in Houston. I think they're on their 6th year. Now they do add in some death metal and maybe like some of the bigger name, like I think Autopsy was there last year. This year it's Saxons headlining. Sirathungal. Wait, is it Sirathungal?
Oh, they just finished their last tour, I think.
No, they're still playing because I'm seeing them on Friday night. I'm seeing them in Denver on Friday night. They're doing this last year. I think they might be playing Hell's Heroes. Look up Hell's Heroes when you're done. I know Christian Larson pretty well. In fact, I'm the guy that suggested he get in touch with Ben and put him in touch with Ben from Crimson Glory, and I'm the guy that got them on that fest.
Oh.
So I will put Christian in touch with you. It wouldn't be for this year, but this coming in March of 25. It would probably be the next year. He'd want to maybe have a chat with you about. So if you like, I can do that. I probably should have done that offline here, but I do know Christian. I've had Christian on with me before. He's got some of my friends in Crip Sermon playing and Daiva playing. So, I mean, I have some inroads to him, and he would know if I contacted him and said, hey, you should really check in with Terry Gorle and see if you guys can do anything, because he loves the traditional metal. So I know he has to know about you. I'd be shocked if he didn't.
Okay, well, that would be great. I'm open to.
He's got 2 bands. He plays in a black metal band called Necrofire, and then Night Cobra is his more trad metal sort of band, and it's kind of UFO meets maybe like Queensryche a little bit, not quite as intricate. So I'll definitely put you in touch with him and let you guys take it from there. But dude, I gotta get to bed because I gotta be up in like 5 hours to go to the fucking airplane, and I'm terrified of flying. So this should be good. I won't sleep tonight. Terry, man, anything else you want to throw in about anything? And we'll kind of wrap then.
God, we covered a lot. I mean,
Here it is.
I've let a few things out of the bag tonight, so we'll see what happens from the feedback of that. But
I was going to say, see if the house is burning down tomorrow or not.
well, I'll know if people are paying attention. That's for sure.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate this opportunity. I'm glad we were able to do this. And,
yeah, man. I'm sorry it took me a little bit of time, and unfortunately, we couldn't get Phil to jump on. But I'll get him in touch with you directly, and if he's sorry, I was hearing a weird noise. Sorry, it's my heater. I'll get him in touch with you because he does come out to Seattle pretty regular with a couple of the bands that he plays in. Probably not your kind of music so much, the death metal stuff, but he's a great dude, man. Killer guitar player. I bet he'd be thrilled to meet you. So
yeah, well, I'd be thrilled to meet him too. So yeah, that'd be great. And yeah, just let me know what you think of the new album when you get a chance to absorb it a little bit.
I will. I've listened to it about 3 times since I got it in 10 days ago. I've had a lot going on with trying to get sorted with some of my other interviews that I'm doing and some of the other projects I'm doing, and then preparing for this trip. When we wrap here, I want you to stick around I'll tell you a couple things that are kind of pertinent to what's going on. So I haven't had like days to just sit down and play it endlessly. Hell, I got the new Opeth and have only spun it one time. And they're one of my favorite bands. So I just have had a lot happening. Car troubles that, of course, pop up right when I'm getting ready to go on a giant trip and let my car sit for 2 weeks. I'm having electrical issues the last 2 days. I'm like, Jesus, come on, seriously, man. So I'm like, my head's kind of like fucked up. But man, this has been so much fun, dude. I if I didn't have to get up in 6 hours, I would stick around for another hour or two. We could probably go on all night, but love your work. Love these albums, man. I'm so glad Kellen made me finally sit down and check these out because it was funny. I have another good friend of mine, John Halm. He might be watching. He's in a band called Agalock, which is down in Portland. And they're kind of one of the early neo-folk, black metal, dark rock sort of bands. Okay, they do the screamers sort of vocals. And John's a good buddy of mine. And I was driving home from King Diamond the other night, maybe 4 weeks ago, I think it was. I'm driving home from King Diamond, and I had just gotten this in, and I'm spinning. I'm actually like holding the phone out, recording songs. I'm like, dude, listen to this fucking riff, man. I'm like, check this shit out. This band just rules. And he's like, oh yeah, I know about that band. Yeah, Heir Apparent, they're great. And then he calls me like a couple days later. He's like, dude, I didn't really realize how fucking great that album is. And the demo, he loves the demo, the Nemesis demo. So, there's a lot of us out there, Terry, that really appreciate what you've done through the years, many years back. And, a lot of us are unfortunately old. It's just the reality of it. We're just a bunch of old fucks, but it's great to see your spirit is still there to keep creating. I wish you the best of luck for those shows over there. And you said you got 2?
We do we do Keep It True, and then we're going to probably have a couple shows in Netherlands, either before Greece or immediately after, and or maybe one of each. And then when we go to Greece, we'll play the Horns Up Festival, a show in Athens, and a show in Thessaloniki. So right now there's like 5 on the table, and I'm open to a 2 or 3 week trip. So if we can add a few more shows while we're over there, I mean, it's like once we're there, the opportunity is there. We might as well, if we can play, 6 or 8 shows in a couple of weeks.
Just make the logistics work and the money work that you're not losing money. And I mean, Fifth Angel just did like their first big tour of Europe in years. They've often done like just the festival thing, but they actually did a whole European thing. Now Kenny was not involved because he had stuff going on with, I think, Flotsam and Jetsam or something. So they had a somebody that was, I forget the guy's name. But the rest of the guys, John, Ed, the new vocalist, Steve, who's very good. He's a really good vocalist. And then they've got Ethan, I think, as their guitar player. So that, in this case, there was only 2 original guys. But they went on a whole tour, and I just talked to Ed a couple, I don't know, 2 weeks ago and said, how'd it go? He goes, some of the shows were absolutely amazing. A couple were, they were it's just what you got to deal with when you're out on the road. And he said everybody got sick, that kind of thing. But it's all in the name of metal, right, bro?
Yeah. I would love to know what it feels like to play 5 shows in a row. I've just never had a chance to do that. And the closest we ever got was the '86 tour, where we played about 12 shows in about a 2 or 3 week period of time. There was a little bit of gap between a couple of them, but every single show got better.
You guys never got to tour. The only time that Heir Apparent ever toured the States was that Crimson Glory thing.
And that was, for all I know, that was just the Southwest. I think it might have been.
Okay.
It might have been just, it might have been just 10 or 12 shows in the Southwest. I think they did California, Arizona.
Yeah. I know they played Philly because Ben told me that, but I do not remember it. That was '88, and it was different time back then. You didn't have the internet; you had to hear it on the radio or see it in a magazine, or I think back to those days, and I'm like, how the fuck did I even know there were concerts going on? Because I didn't live in Philly. I lived an hour and a half outside, and unless I was reading a magazine and saw it or heard it, probably radio, I would imagine. Terrestrial radio back then was probably the, hey, Rush is coming to the Spectrum on, that kind of thing. But I often think back, I'm like, how did I even end up at the shows I ended up at? Because I can't remember how I ever found out about them. And that's not old age there. That's just, I just don't know how it happened,
One last little nugget. I mean, You've heard the story about how, the view from below was all stitched together piece by piece. Mm-hmm. Graceful Inheritance, the guitar, bass, and drums are tracked live.
Wow, no shit.
We were so tight.
Wow.
The song "Rip," that instrumental, that's totally live.
Wow.
So, and the song "Masters of Invasion" that starts with all those effects and everything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All those are tracked live. We played with our live effects all the way through the songs.
That's crazy.
The guitar, bass, and drums are all tracked live. You can hear usually like a song like "Running from the Thunder" with all that chaotic string bending a lot.
Yep.
All that's live. I came in underneath the solo on some of these songs and would write a rhythm guitar part to fit underneath the solo. But we played live, and I would oftentimes go right into the solo and play that, come out of it into my part, and then go back. And the overdub was the guitar chords underneath.
The rhythm part underneath. Yeah.
I'd make something up to fill in the gap. That's the difference in the dynamic between a band that used to rehearse and the bands these days that don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're right, and I mean, it's a different time though, man. I mean, it really was. And back then, shows weren't so production oriented. You had your lights, you might have some pyro, but they were the trailer park versions of that for the club gigs. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, it was kind of like you had one of your buddies was your roadie. Maybe you had 2 good buddies that would roadie for nothing, just for booze and weed or whatever. I don't know. I don't know that. I just said that to be funny, but probably a little bit of that. And you had maybe a sound guy that you could take along to pay. And then you had somebody that was doing lights too, or you had the club guy that was doing it, And now it's all these big production things. And don't get me wrong, that's cool. To see a big show like that. But I still love going. Like I saw King Diamond the other day. Man, I never was a King Diamond fan. For years and years and years, I was like, that voice is so hokey, right? And then one day it clicked. And I'm like, I got to see that dude before I die. So I went down to see him in D.C. Fucking amazing performance. Just theatrical and so cool. And I was very close. I got an Andy LaRocque pick when he threw it out at me. And so it was like, and I can't, that shit, even at almost 60 years old, still gets my dick hard. I'm like, this is the coolest stuff, Like, I mean, because I wasn't the guy that went and did it. After a certain point, I got married, got a college degree. I played in bands and cover bands locally and stuff, but I had friends that went out to LA and they're like, you should come out. I'm like, dude, I'll end up dead. And that probably was a good choice on my part. I probably would have, just because I had some issues back then that I wouldn't have wanted to go out there and take out there with me. But it's like, so I really, when I see the guys up there, they're doing it, it's like, man, I just want to be up there just for a minute. So I'm envious of you, partner, just a little bit, you know?
Well, by the same token, I'm kind of in that same place where I just, I want to make the most of these opportunities while they're around, because we are, we get invited to these festivals and we show up and we're on bills with bands that are, actively professionally touring all the time.
Right.
And we're setting down our day jobs for a week to fly over there and play a show alongside these guys that are professionals.
They're doing it for a living, and that this is their thing. Yeah.
It's like, it's like, hey guys, we need to practice.
Yeah.
We have to at least pretend like we know what the hell we're doing, right?
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly.
So, it's just, I look forward to it, and I really, beyond anything, and hopefully you can tell this, I really appreciate the fans, the fact that there's people like you out there that even give a damn.
Yeah,
it just thrills me, right?
That's awesome, man. I mean, and you know what? The biggest thing that I find, and one of the cooler things that I find now, unless you're a big band like a Dream Theater, I mean, they do the meet and greets thing, which I'm kind of like, part of, I get it. Bands need to bring in other sources of income, but that thing has been bastardized to a point where it's disgusting. Like the Kiss, $10,000 to get the guitar, to get the 5 seconds with Paul Stanley. Come on, man, get out of here. But so I get the cool ones, which are like I did the Fates Warning one. It was the only time I think I've ever done one, because I really wanted to meet Jim, Joey Vera. I know Joey a little bit. I just wanted to meet the guys. I think I paid $40 extra. That was worth it. I'm not going to pay $500 to meet Jerry Cantrell. Jerry Cantrell came out when they got back together at the TLA down in Philly, walked out the back door, signed everything, and I knew somebody, and he knew that I knew them, and he pulled me in. I got to hang out with those guys, and they were the fucking coolest dudes ever. So bands must realize that guys like me, the guys that buy the merch, you saw it, I bought all that stuff with my money.
Yeah.
The guys that buy the t-shirts, I'm buying. I just got this in the mail today, Dio Strange Highways shirt. I'm like, I'm 60 going on 14. I don't give a shit. It is what it is. It makes me happy. I'm the guy that's laying the money out there. Take 2 seconds to say, hey man, let me sign your CD, or take a picture with me. I'm not going to dominate you for hours. It's important.
When I go to these festivals, I'm out there with the people the whole time. I don't hide. I'm not tucked away backstage. There's no fucking attitude. There's no bullshit. I'm out there with the people, watching the other bands, open to whoever wants to talk.
That's so important. So important.
It's always been that way. And I think that's, the band was like that in '86. And I think that's one of the things that kind of, the people who did know of us in the underground back in the day, I think that's one of the things they appreciated, was that, during Savage Grace's show, we're out there in the crowd.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a mutual respect between the fan and the artist.
We're hanging out with people, and never turning anybody away all the time. It's shit. Without that, there's nothing, right? I appreciate that, and we've always been that way, and maybe that's why the underground still cares.
That probably is. That's probably a lot of why it is. So, listen, Terry, I'm going to wrap just because I got to try to get a quick shower and get some sleep.
Yeah.
And because I'm going to be anxious as hell tomorrow. I can't. I don't drink or anything like that. Well, I drink, but I'm not drinking $18 beers on a flight. That's for damn sure. I haven't flown in 12 years, so it's getting in my head. I'm starting to get the head creep. I just don't like flying, so I got to get through it. But man, it's been super cool, meeting you. I really appreciate you doing this and spending all this time with me tonight and kind of giving us the soup to nuts Heir Apparent story, even some of the dirt. We got a little bit of dirt, guys, just a little bit. And we got some exclusives tonight. So you're Harry Conklin singing for you guys, and you're doing some festival dates this summer, April.
Yes, next year.
April.
Yeah. April, May, and then whatever else happens behind that, is up to the guys. And then hopefully by April, the complete digital remix of Graceful Inheritance will be in the can. Who's
going to reissue that? Who, or don't you know yet?
I haven't even. I mean, today's the first time I've mentioned it publicly.
Okay.
If any labels want to license that, get a hold of me. I know that there's bound to be some that are interested. I mean, it's a complete digital remix with modern tools. So I've heard one track already, and it's really fucking nice.
I can't wait, man. I'll be picking up a copy up, and I just want to we'll close on this. That hair that Steve is rocking there is awesome. That is like prime 1986, 87 poodle haircut there, Steve.
Well, he came out of a French Kiss was kind of a glam band.
I was gonna say they had to have been a glam band. They had to have,
yeah. Wearing the sparkly
makeup and the spandex and the fishnets and all that shit. Dude, it's been awesome. I want you to hang out a minute. Just hang on for 1 sec. We'll end here. And everybody that was hanging on tonight, we had about 10 people on in the evening. I think this will get a lot more eyes as it goes along. I'll send you a copy. I'll send you a link to it. Okay. Not the link you have. I'll send you the YouTube link then. Before I crash here, probably. I'll send that over to you. You can do whatever you want with it, man. It's yours. You can throw it up on your website. You can dump it on your Facebook. You can not do anything with it. It's up to you. You might want to watch it the whole way through just to make sure you're. But I will say it's going to be up on my site. I'm not taking it down, and I'm not editing. I don't edit. So what's in here is in here. So if there's anything you're upset about, you might want to watch it tomorrow and just get back to me.
I don't think there's anything I'm upset about. I mean, people. I believe in reality, man. I put the shit on the table. It's
I think you were complimentary of all those dudes, many of whom were your good friends for many years. But there's, they probably know what they did and didn't do.
Well, and like I said early on, I can only speculate from what I know from what I went through, because a lot of times I've never got any other side of the story.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm supposing a lot of things, but it seems logical to me, right?
Based on
how and why things happened, right?
Yeah.
And it is what it is. The guys obviously they're obviously great players. It's just the saddest thing about this band is that it never lived up to its potential.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it.
And that's the reality, and so, while I have a chance to try to make up for some lost time and do it right, I want to try to do that. So we'll see what happens.
So here's what I have to say. Everybody go out and get these albums. There are links. The links are in the description to the Heir Apparent website, which has links to where you can purchase this stuff. You can find it on Discogs. You can find it on Amazon. I don't know what an original copy of the first album goes for. This is the 30th anniversary. Where is that? There. This is the 30th anniversary reissue. I didn't pay crazy money for it. I doubt I'll go looking for the two. I'm not that guy that has to have the original of everything. I'm not that nerdy. But if I run across it, I do know that the first album was going for pretty crazy money. But you just saw what Triad was going for on Amazon. Some dude was trying to get $260 out of that. That's nuts.
Yeah, that is nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got one copy of the original Graceful Inheritance. I've got one copy of the original One Small Voice that I had to buy at Tower Records myself. They didn't even send me one when the
Jesus
album came out.
Unreal.
Okay, I had to go buy my own fucking copy at Tower.
That's unreal.
For
That's
$15.99. So yeah, and if anybody wants to buy anything, I still have a few sitting here. So you
got some shirts?
I've got shirts. I've
connect.
I've got a little bit of everything.
Okay.
So if you want to come straight to the source and put the money where it's going to do the most good to recoup some debt, get a hold of me.
Yeah, hit me up. I'll get you in touch with Terry. He's not that hard to find. You can, if you go on Metallum, you do have a contact email address on there, so that'd be cool too. So that's a direct way to give him the cash to help, recover some of these expenses. But dude, this has been awesome, man. I can't thank you enough for spending this much time with me and laying out all this cool stuff. And I will put you in touch with Baca Christian about Hells. And beyond that, I can't. There's not much I can do. I'll let you two connect if you connect. Yeah, man, I hope I get to meet you one of these days. It would be great if you got out. Like, even another one that would be cool for you would be Prog Power down in Atlanta. That's a pretty cool one. Now, they probably would want to try to wiggle out the OG band, probably, but I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if the OG...
They did have Fifth Angel back in September. They had Fifth Angel, and that's only 3/5 original. So,
yeah. Well, we'll see.
We'll see. All right, man. Hang on one sec. All right. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody who was hanging out tonight. Appreciate it. Go support this guy. He's a good dude, and go buy some stuff from him. All right. Go buy merch. And you can buy me some stuff too. Anybody that's watching, you can buy me stuff if you want to. I'm all good with that. All right, hang on one sec, Terry. All right.
You bet. Thanks,
Good night,
Terry.
everybody. All right, hang loose.